Welcome everyone to the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc on Monday, June 16th. It is our regular council session. The municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc acknowledges that it is located on Treaty 21 territory. We are thankful to the generations of people who have taken care of this land, including the Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, the Munsee Delaware First Nation, the United Nation of the Thames. Roll call. Councillor Brennan is absent with notice. Someone to move that we approve the agenda of tonight's meeting. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Pelkman. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to delegations. First presentation tonight is on the Housing Accelerator Fund. We have, you must be Scott.
I am, your worship.
Thank you. Scott is here from MHBC Planning to present on the Housing Accelerator Fund.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Do I need to push this button?
You're good.
I good? Okay. Oh, yeah, definitely. All right, thank you. Again, good evening, your worship, members of council. My name is Scott Allen. I'm with MHBC Planning, and we have been retained by the County of Middlesex to assist and prepare zoning bylaw amendments intended to help promote housing choice and efficient development in Strathroy-Caradoc, as well as Lucan Badolph, North Middlesex, and Middlesex Center. And the intent of these zoning bylaw amendments is to support municipal applications to the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund, or HAF, which is administered by the CMHC. Generally, the HMF provides incentive funding to local governments to assist with a number of housing-related programs and to provide funding in particular for housing-related infrastructure. Our presentation this evening will be brief and is intended to provide an overview of our current of our study framework and our current status of our work plan. That's great, actually. Thank you. I will mention to change slides as we move forward. At the outset, I wanted to advise that the assessment is helped to inform the Round 2 HAF application. Package is being advanced by the county and municipal staff, and an informal advisory committee has been established with municipal staff to help advance this project. Set out on this slide, our scope of work focuses on 4 project components that are collectively to help streamline development of housing options through the zoning bylaw amendments. And those 4 elements begin with ending exclusionary zoning practices, secondly, reducing or eliminating parking standards, third, eliminating zoning regulations and adding flexibility for zoning provisions, and fourthly, to design and implement regulations and guidelines for additional residential units, or ARUs. Our work plan is subdivided, as noted on the slide, into 4 phases. First is the jurisdictional review of municipal best practices to identify options to promote housing. Secondly is to assess the regulatory framework to determine if there's amendments that have been carried out to local official plans and zoning bylaws to advance housing options. Thirdly is to conduct public engagement regarding the recommended amendments, and then finally to implement suitable official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to help broaden housing choice, and of course that is a decision of council. So each project and phase we briefly addressed in my presentation, but as highlighted on this slide, we are currently in the jurisdictional review stage, and one of the focuses of that review is to identify missing middle housing types and opportunities to expand those. That includes things such as fourplexes and townhouses. Our asides do include certain examples that we'd identified, and some of our council members may have reviewed them. I wanted to advise that those findings are very preliminary in nature, and they're simply to provide for opportunities for council to understand kind of what matters are that we're reviewing, and there'll be more detail we provided as we move forward, and there'll be more consultation with municipal staff, stakeholders, and council. Next slide, please. So our presentation is briefly separated into 5 elements, and I'll start with the first, which is exclusionary zoning. Next slide, please. And through the HAF program, CMHC has identified that ending or reducing exclusionary zoning is a core strategy to promote housing supply and affordability. And For council's consideration, exclusionary zoning, I should say, is probably best illustrated with your traditional single detached residential zones, where perhaps, such as R1 in Strathroy-Caradoc, where there's a limited number of housing options in a particular zone. And CMC identified that there are a number of opportunities to try to reduce or eliminate exclusionary zoning as part of the HAF application, including several listed on the slide, which I won't get into in detail. We've noted, though, that in several municipalities comparable to the Strathroy-Caradoc, local zoning bylaws have been amended in recent years to consolidate lower density residential zones to permit a wider variety of housing types in your traditional low density zones, as also promote greater residential intensity and more compact design, for instance. Next slide, please. Also, with respect to exclusionary zoning, we had identified a few preliminary considerations in Strathroy-Caradoc community, that is. One is to expand housing permissions in the R1 or residential first density zone, or low density residential zone, as well as medium density residential zone, or R2, potentially allowing cluster townhouses in the R2 or high density residential R3 zones, and perhaps adjusting development regulations as they relate to ARUs. So again, that was just a few examples we'd identified. We're exploring several as we move forward. Next slide, please. The second HAF initiative relates to measures to try to reduce parking standards to help lower development costs and potentially increase residential densities. In our research, we've identified a number of municipalities that have lowered or actually removed parking requirements for certain housing types or in certain development areas, particularly in relation to apartments and multi-unit dwellings in kind of core communities. We note that in those kinds of situations, the expectation is that the developer or the landowner will determine the appropriate amount of parking to be provided within a project. And for Strathroy-Caradoc, we've identified certain opportunities to reduce minimum parking standards as noted on this slide, and these options and others will be reviewed further as the project advances. Next slide, please. In keeping with the objective to reduce exclusionary zoning, CMHC is also seeking to have the zoning provisions simplified as an initiative to increase housing supply and help streamline approvals. To address this objective, as set out in this slide, options are being explored to modify zoning regulations and encourage a wider variety of housing types and densities. Municipalities we've surveyed have implemented a number of regulations to promote in more intensive forms by measures such as increasing building heights, reducing building setbacks, and lowering landscaped open space requirements. These approaches and several others will be evaluated further as our study progresses. Thank you. Next slide, please. With respect to additional residential units, to date, we have evaluated a number of municipal regulations, provincial guidelines, and HAF requirements. As outlined on this slide, considering the framework of Strathroy-Caradoc's official plan, per the HAF requirements, an official plan amendment may be necessary to permit ARUs having up to 4 units per dwelling in service settlement areas and 3 units per dwelling in rural communities. We've also identified that certain zoning regulations would need to be amended to establish development standards that achieve provincial and HAF objectives for ARUs. So in conjunction with our work plans, anticipated that draft official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendments will be developed to address these particular objectives for further discussion with, again, stakeholders, the community, and council. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, as a final slide, we're currently completing the first phase of our work plan, and the final 3 phases are identified on this slide. Following submission of our jurisdictional review report to municipal staff and further discussions with our advisory committee, we'll be drafting official plan and zoning bylaw amendments for consideration as part of phase 2. This is expected to conclude by roughly mid-August. Phase 3 involves hosting community consultations regarding the amendments, which are expected to be organized for September. And finally, in phase 4, proposed amendments and ARU guidelines will be advanced to council for its consideration. The expectation is that amendment package will be brought forward to council in October or November of this year. Thank you. I'm glad to answer any questions that the council may have.
Are there any questions? Councillor Pelkman.
Yes, thank you. I have three. Well, the first one is more of a comment. As far as the parking standards go, I get the point about reducing parking standards for higher residential buildings, because as things get more expensive, the probability starts to decrease. I can't, though, ever agree to reducing standards of a single family home or even a semi-detached from 3 to 2, because it's almost certain there's going to be 2 vehicles, probably 3 if there's children, and that's going to push all the cars on the road. And we already get complaints about some streets being unmaneuverable because of the volume of cars on the road. And then what do we do with all those vehicles in the winter time? So that's a comment more than a question. However, again though, in regards to changing the parking considerations, during your research, was there any differentiation between communities that had public transit and communities that don't? Because obviously the requirement for a vehicle is different for communities that don't have public transit. So that's my first question.
Through your worship, yes, we've certainly reviewed roughly 20 municipalities in terms of their zoning regulations for parking and the other matters we discussed. And it's certainly recognized that in communities that have a public transit system, that there is that opportunity to reduce parking substantially, particularly in core communities or those that are well serviced by transit. And so certainly, yes, that has been factored in, and your comments regarding the single detached dwellings and kind of managing the parking is well understood. And that's something that, again, we'll be reviewing further. But yes, I can answer that clearly that we have evaluated that, and it is a major consideration when looking at parking reductions, is what other options are available. And realistically, especially in winter type conditions, there often aren't many. Your biking and your pedestrian opportunities are limited, certainly when the weather starts getting miserable. So that's all factored in, and and we're fully aware that that's a consideration for Strathroy-Caradoc.
Yep, Councillor Pelkman.
Okay, my second question, and I don't know how familiar you are with Strathroy, but most of us are. I agree with the ability to allow a fourplex on a single lot, provided the design is correct. So I have a little bit of more of an issue of taking an existing house and splitting it into 4, as opposed to taking if you were to buy a house, knock it down and build a fourplex. And I'll use the corner by the beer store on the corner of Adelaide and where the Salvation Army was.
Maitland Terrace.
Maitland Terrace. There's a fourplex that has been on the corner there for 40 years plus, and I bet you nobody even really noticed that it was a fourplex. One thing that is allowed on that property, which I didn't see any comment on here about it, is the ability to allow more than one driveway on a lot, specifically corner lots. Because right now, the policy is we can't allow more than one driveway. So if you're gonna try and get the cars off the road, then that's something that needs to be thought of, is possibly allowing more than one driveway, specifically on corner lots. So just wondering if there's any thought or any talk about that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have noted a few municipalities that have a similar bylaw requirement or opportunity when you do have a corner lot. And the objective, or part of the objective of this whole HAF initiative, is to try to minimize the number of site-specific zonings that we have to carry out in order to. And so in my research, and again, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but there were certainly circumstances where they maximized the number of driveway accesses for multi-unit development. So just to your point, like for a fourplex, they might say a maximum of 2 direct accesses and maybe off a corner lot. So that's certainly something to be explored further. Because yes, we're trying to ensure that what we call as of right permissions are flexible enough to promote housing supply, but without adversely impacting on the neighborhood as well. So it's a bit of a balance, and so the actual regulations and develop them. It's certainly a challenge, and we'll be looking for a lot of input from the community and the council as well.
You live in a small town, and you can use the beer store as a point, but the beer store is just, if you go straight through the stoplight and around across the tracks to see the beer store, I encourage you to look at that fourplex, because I think it's a very appropriate design to increase additional dwelling units without impacting the local neighborhoods.
So I know Councillor Wilsey, Councillor Kennis, the question's still fresh. How much leeway or say does the council have on the flexibility of this regulation? So to Councillor Pelkman's first comment regarding parking, is it entrenched in stone that we have to follow the regulation in order to get the grant money? Or do we have some leeway we can say yes or no?
As I understand it, Your Worship, for certain elements like the additional residential units, in order to obtain the funding, you are to apply or comply, I should say, with the HAF required from the CMHC. But other aspects, there's a lot more flexibility. The objective of the submission is to try to demonstrate that the municipality has looked at its zoning regulations in particular to find opportunities to try to increase flexibility, to promote housing options. But the ARU in particular, as I understand it, I may be inaccurate here, is kind of somewhat carved in stone.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Kennis and Councillor Woolsey. Paper, rock, scissors.
My question, I think we all agree and appreciate the need to intensify in more housing, and CMHC, I guess, will look at it from the housing standpoint. I guess who's looking at it from the underneath the house point of view in terms of infrastructure and dealing with water and stormwater and all that kind of stuff. We build on things, and the less we have open land to deal with infiltration of water, and I guess who's gonna be looking to make sure we don't overdo it in certain spots. So.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, fair question. That one of the challenges with intensification is having the ability to service those more intensive multi-unit developments. And part of our review, it's not a major focus, the servicing side, but we will certainly be talking to municipal staff about what is viable in the community. What we're trying to support is, I guess, effective minimum requirements that will allow for additional units without kind of adversely affecting the kinds of things that you're speaking of in terms of adequate servicing, community character, and those kinds of things. And so it's, again, a bit of a difficult balance, but always challenging to promote intensification without goods of the servicing infrastructure. And so that will be something that we'll be certainly discussing with municipal staff.
Councillor Wilsey.
As you're doing this with the county for a number of different municipalities, one of the comments I've heard back from people with the contractors and developers is that as they move from, say, Middlesex Center to Strathroy-Caradoc, the rules change. So they have to, there's different things for their houses, for servicing, how things are set up. The bylaws are different for what you can allow on different lots. Because you're doing this for a number of different municipalities, will those now be harmonized, and Strathroy-Caradoc's R1 bylaw will match Middlesex Center, whatever other, is that one of the goals of you doing multiple municipalities to make it easier to do things, or is that are they all still going to be separate when you're done and individual?
The intent through Mr. It's certainly to be localized in terms of the zoning regulations. There's an effort to harmonize as much as possible, so there is effectively a kind of an understanding in each community of what can be expected, but there is still a local input. And so I would say, it's an awkward response to this, that let's say it's kind of a 50-50, that we're going to try to harmonize whenever we can, but in there's situations where there's local concerns. An example, for instance, is the 3 parking stalls for single detached dwellings that was discussed previously by the councillor. that is certainly a localized matter. And so from our perspective, we're trying to develop a program that works for the municipality and hopefully balances fairly effectively with the other three that we're working with.
Councilor Derbyshire.
Thank you. Through you to, I'm gonna say, all of us. Just so I'm clear, this is the 3 million dollar grant that we received. 3.8. And this engagement here that we're going through right now, we are doing this because we've accepted $3.8 million, not because this is a new provincial rule that we have to go to. We are putting ourselves in this situation, which is $3.8 million enough for what we're going to possibly put ourselves through here in opening up what could be some pretty big issues when you start talking about adding 3 to 4 dwellings to one spot, even the changing of parking, just the rules that we have to go through here to accelerate housing to a system that, are we prepared for that? And we're doing this not because it's really getting shoved down, because someone's dangling a $3.8 million carrot that when it was presented to us, nobody said we had to provide the extra 13 rooms. That was part of the condition, that we were gonna end up changing how R1, R2, R3 zones are all set up. Like, none of that was presented when we applied for this. It was presented as, we can get this money to help with the infrastructure that we need as houses are growing. Not that this was going to be a complete changing of our zoning bylaws, our parking bylaws, you know, and on top of that, we're gonna add possibly so much more to this. Does $3.8 million, is it worth it for what we're about to embark on? I guess that would kind of be my question, which I don't think was really laid out to us. It was more presented as, we can get this money and we can spend it wherever we want. Let alone we have to find a partner for 13 more rooms for this place, or for this grant. So I think as council, like I understand what we've been presented. I just don't know if we fully comprehended what we were getting ourselves into in doing this.
Yeah, I think, just Councilor, I think there was, I think the CAO asked the same question you did earlier, and there was quite an extensive presentation made. I don't think it was as granular, like with all the exact terms, like the parking in there, but it did lay out the 7 conditions that were in there. And I could stand to be corrected, but I understand and respect your question. It's a fair question.
Sorry, maybe I wasn't here for that meeting. I thought it was kind of presented by the planning lady at the time that, you know, this is something that would help with the infrastructure issues we were facing at the time. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they did lay out that we had to get 13 more units and that we were going to change all our zoning and all that.
Yeah. And I can stand to be corrected too, right, Council? I do recall something we could.
Like, it kind of feels like there's an awful lot to this for, I'm going to say, doesn't feel like a whole lot of money when you look at it end up costing us down the road if people do decide to start putting 4 units in lots of residential areas. Then maybe it doesn't happen right away, but can our infrastructure, which nobody, like, they're gonna kind of look into it, but Councillor Kennis did address it with, can it handle what might come down the road, and does $3.8 million help us? Or are we setting ourselves up for possible disaster?
Fair question. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'm just gonna ask, is that Councilor Derbyshire did raise a fair question what the information we're given, so I'm gonna ask either the CEO or clerk to look. I do recall a presentation. Councilor, we should find it just a refresher to everybody, because we all get lots of presentations, right? So they all find it and recirculate it to everybody. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Are we into this anyway? So really it doesn't matter. Like, are we committed to this? It's not like you can say, look, we're not gonna take your money and we kind of want out of this.
I I think you can get of anything if you wanted to, it's just, we already took the first. Director Dakin's going to refresh my memory. I think I did say last meeting, we got the first payment of $940,000 already. Director Dakin?
Through the chair, yes, we do.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, just the 13 units are that Councillor Derbyshire is referring to. But that aside, I think it's important to remind people as to why we went down this road initially. And that is we need affordable housing in the community. And through some of these changes, and we've all talked about not putting up roadblocks, and we hear from developers that, you know, we're not friendly for some of this stuff. And I realize we have to look, you know, at implications and infrastructure. But the reason we're doing some of this is that it will create more housing options other than just single detached homes, hopefully at more affordable prices. If you can put 2 or 3 suites in a house or a small side apartment, those are gonna be reasonably priced relative to the market. And that's what the community has been asking for. It's what all the provincial and federal government and all the information we get say is needed, and locally. So I just think it's important that we remember why we're doing this, and that's to give us more housing options, hopefully more affordable housing options.
Councillor Canis.
I do remember that meeting, it's coming back to me, and I have to agree with Councillor Derbyshire. It was pretty much like, this is a blank check and you can do with it what you want. And so, you know, that being said, I mean, we've got 900,000. I assume we haven't spent any of that, so if this comes out to be 2 owners and we decide not to do it, you can always give the money back, right? So I think I guess maybe just to leave it at this point is to say that there's gonna be a whole lot more involved in this than we originally assumed or were led to believe, so we'll see what happens.
And that's fair, and I wonder if I ask staff through the CIO, because the questions about as of right units, if we could see as part of that, what's currently, because I think we're currently as of right is 3, right? And the new legislation's asking for 4. Because when you hear as of right for 4, when you don't understand, and I read too much of this stuff, if you don't understand that it's already 3, it sounds like a larger number than it is, but it's fair. We'll find information. Council should have it so they can make a proper decision. Councillor Pelkman.
That being said, there are things in here that I think we can change. So, you know, I'm thinking of a development that's just around the corner from here that got nixed because they needed to add 1 more parking spot and they couldn't. And it's right downtown. And if there's any place where you could get rid of parking spots for someone who might not have a vehicle, it's downtown because they can walk to get whatever they need. So if we can make some of those changes and still keep the ones that we think are important and still qualify for the money, then it's worth looking into. But I think that's our task, is to make sure that we don't go too far over the line and still see if we can qualify for the money.
Okay. Fair. Councillor Wilsey, then we'll move on.
Just one point, as we're talking about all the towns, one of the things here is to, as a right to have 3 dwelling units on all agricultural properties as well. So there's potential to put 2 more housing units on every agricultural farm and place that has a homestead on the property as well. So if we don't want our farmland developed, that's something else that we should probably consider, because we do have an awful lot of homes. And I remember how hard it was for me to even put a second one online, and now 3 will be no problem following this. So just a comment for council to consider.
Okay. Yeah, one more, we'll let you have last word.
No, I just want to ask one more, because when Donna says I don't know about the 13 units, I thought we heard last time where we were looking for, or we're going to donate that land by the police station for more affordable housing in line with the 13 unit for the Housing Accelerator Fund. Is that,
just to correct?
am I right or wrong?
I know what you're saying.
No, but just correct, we're not donating, we just declared it surplus, right? That's all we have. We didn't
No, but-
donate it. Yep.
But through that discussion, I believe is where it was brought up,
Yeah.
that we need to do, for this thing, we have to supply that many more units. That was What I'm saying is, when we look at all the qualifications that are needed, that's all I was getting at. Let's make sure we know all of it, not just a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here, like.
No, it's fair, we'll get the information, 'cause if we don't understand it, can't expect the public to understand it either, so we'll get that information. Thank you for the presentation, we have some homework to do. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Your Worship, and members of council.
Thank you. Next, we do have 2 service award presentations. I don't see Bill Brunick here, but Bill Brunick is being awarded 20 years of service. Bill does work as a public works operator in our engineering and public works departments. I want to thank Bill for his contribution, and at the appropriate time, I will award him his certificate. Now I'm going to call on our deputy clerk, Melanie Carson. We'll do this right up here, Melanie, so you don't have to walk that far. How's that? No, Melanie has 5 years of service. Melanie is deputy clerk in our legal and legislative services department, so thank you, Melanie, for your contribution. Oh, picture? Oh, really? You did one more time?
Official photographer.
Don't know why.
Take off the lens cap. Next are approval of minutes. There are 2 minutes in front of you for approval. One is the regular council meeting minutes of June 2nd and special council meeting minutes of May 27th. Someone to bring a motion. Councillor Kennis, second by the deputy mayor. Any questions, errors, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. There are 3 items under the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any items for discussion? Seeing none, motion to approve the 3 items on the consent agenda. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Kedis. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. There is 1 notice of motion in front of you this evening. It's from Deputy Mayor McGuire. Deputy Mayor, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. This notice of motion comes as a result of a conversation I had with a resident that lives in the out Metcalf Street West area. Every day she tells me she walks into Strathroy using the new sidewalk on the south side of Metcalf Street up to the arena, the old arena there, or the West Middlesex Memorial Arena. And then she walks across over Victoria Street and use the sidewalk to walk up Victoria Street, leads her downtown, she goes into the park, and this is her walking route. She's having a hard time, and has had a hard time for many years, crossing Victoria Street. Tells me that she has raised this in the previous administration with some members of council at that time, and since then has reached out to, I know the mayor, and he's been working along on this, and then I ended up having a conversation with Sherry, and I spoke to the mayor, and I said I would just kind of drive this forward, as he's been very busy on some other stuff. So what happened with this is I reached out to the Director of Engineering with the county, Chris Trainey, and asked him what would be available. What is available rather quickly and relatively inexpensively is to put crosswalk signage up there. These are the yellow fluorescent signs that you see at all the school crossings. They just signify that it's a crossing area, and drivers should be stopping for the pedestrians. There are no flashing lights, nothing electronic. It would be posted in the area of Victoria Street, of Metcalf Street and Victoria Street. So they're going to have to pick the appropriate spot to put this. We'll leave that up to the county. They have people with the expertise of doing this. This requires a motion of our council asking the county to put the signs up. We have to designate the money to do it, since we have to pay for it. Thus, the motion that I'm asking you to support me on this evening is that council requests Middlesex County to install pedestrian crossing signs along Metcalf Street, Victoria Street, Further, that council authorized an expenditure of up to $6,000 for this purpose. Chris Trainey tells me it's worth about $5,000, but I put 6, just inflation. And furthermore, council direct the Director of Finance to allocate funding for this project from reserves as needed. And I can mention that I did speak to the Director of Finance about this, and he says there is money available. So unless there's any questions, that is how this comes up, and that's my request this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Palmer? I have one question first, and something that's bothered me a lot. This is a county road, county jurisdiction. Where does it say in paper anywhere that the municipality has to pay? I'm not opposed to it, it's bothered me because we've had to pay for crosswalks and bridges that are on county roads, and it keeps getting told us that we have to pay for it. Is there somewhere a bylaw that says we need to pay? Or is it just they're telling us we have to pay?
Through the chair to the chair, I'm gonna take a stab at it, then I'll turn it over to our engineer. My understanding is that the county is responsible on county roads from curb to curb, so anything outside of the curb, i.e. a sign in the right-of-way, we'll call it, the road's right-of-way on the side, is our responsibility. But I stand to be corrected.
No, that's fair. I don't know if sorry, I didn't ambush you on that. It's just
Not a problem, but
bothering
I
me.
did speak to Director Trainey about that, and he, exactly as Director Gagan said, that the county is the roads from the travel portion of the roadway, which we call the highway under the Highway Traffic Act. So they're responsible for that. And the sidewalk, for instance, is ours. So we're basically doing an extension of the sidewalk. I will say, if the motion passes and if this is notified to the county tomorrow or whenever, about 2 weeks they'll be up, which would be great for the summer months.
Fair enough. Did I see Councillor Canis with a question?
Yeah, I'm in support of this, but I have some concerns about it because it's similar to a crossing at 2nd and Head Street, which I raised to Mr. Ortiz previously, that nobody stops at those crossings. Like, there's no flashing light, and it says stop, and I've stood there, and I'm not a small person, and nobody stops. So I'm just concerned, right? Sometimes these things give a false sense of security, and like I said, I'll vote yes, but I'm just concerned that people don't stop. So,
any other questions? Councillor Pelkman.
Yeah, I share the same concerns as Councillor Canis. It is a busy stretch of road, and the cars travel fast there coming into town. And since we have built all that infrastructure at the West Middlesex Fairgrounds complex, that there's a lot of people walking to it. But with no lights or flashing lights or anything, I get nervous about somebody being hit, because we took one down on Caradoc Street for that reason, because somebody did get hit at the corner of Ontario and Caradoc. So yeah, I'm worried that there's no flashing lights. I'd be happier if it was like the ones on Head Street that had the flashing lights. That at least is a strong indicator to a driver that something's happening.
Yeah, go ahead, Deputy. I will tell you, I'm trying to get the county to put up stoplights. There, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
So, I mean, this may well be the first step. We're trying to get something done as expeditiously as we can. We got all the kids and the people that are using both the arena and the facilities in behind the arena and the pool. So the citizen that I've been speaking with says it's not just for her alone. There's a lot of traffic, pedestrian traffic there. So we're trying to get something done as quickly as we can. It certainly is not ideal. If it's an enforcement issue, that would need to go to our local police, who would certainly be able to assist with that matter. It's something we can actually get done quickly. I can tell you, traffic lights, I'm told, roughly $500,000, and the one that Head and Metcalf took probably 2 years to get it designed and installed. So we're trying to do something now. Doesn't mean this is the be-all and end-all.
Yep. Councillor Pelkman, then we'll bring it to a vote.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna vote in favor of it. I don't have an issue with it. Just one where the crosswalk ends up being, maybe since later on in the discussion, we're talking sidewalks, that should the sidewalk need to be extended around the corner so it lines up with Buchanan, if that's where the cross being, that we include that in our sidewalk construction for the year.
Okay. No further questions. You have 3 motions in front of you. All in favor of the motions? Opposed, if any? Those motions carry. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Unfinished business is Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corporation. There is a recommendation that council appoint Councillor Frank Caradoc Housing Corporation Board. Someone to bring that motion. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Pelkman. Any questions? Councillor Wilsey.
We talked about this earlier today. Did you look into the fact whether or not under the strong mayor powers this has to be delegated to council, or if this is part of the strong mayor?
Yeah, I did. I looked it up, and I was gonna actually talk about strong mayor powers under inquiries and comments under definition. I'm looking to the clerk to make sure my verbiage is proper under the Strong Mayor Act and the local boards. The mayor has the ability to form the committee, to create the committee, but the appointment of members isn't part of the strong mayor powers. Yep. Sorry, Councilor Derbyshire.
That's okay. All right, not to be stick in the mud, but I don't know if Councilor Canis is coming on as a public member, because the bylaws state that if we have 2 councillors, one has to be from Ward 1 and one from Ward 2, is what your bylaws state. So I don't know if he's a public member or whether Councillor Pelkman stepped down, but that would mean you're gonna have to, if you want 4 of us, you gotta pick somebody from Ward 2, according to the bylaws.
Yeah, so is there, knowing I'll address that, I'm not sure what role I'm addressing it as, but as the secretary, both you and Councillor Wilsey were on the board previous, so in all fairness, there's an assumption you wouldn't want to be on the board again. Approach Councillor Hippel, so we need 4 members to ensure quorum as we make the transition to a local board. But Councillor Derbyshire, I think if you or Councillor Wilsey want to go back on the board, we can re-enter the discussions, but there was some thought behind it.
It's not that I don't agree, I just,
Yeah.
we put bylaws in place for a reason. We should change the bylaw then if you want to do that, so that we're not going.
Yeah, and just speaking as we met today, we're trying to make that transition to a local board, and the bylaws will change. At this point, we're in a bit of a pickle, right? We need to ensure we have quorum and we can move forward, so that's the whole purpose, just to ensure that the board can continue to operate. Yep, Councillor Canis.
Yeah, I'm happy to step aside for a Ward 2 councillor if they want to take it on. I just volunteered so that things could start moving forward again, so.
Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed, if any? Okay, I didn't see Councillor Wilsey or Councillor Derbyshire vote.
Can you just go against the bylaws? Or it doesn't matter?
I know what you're saying. I don't want to give an opinion. I don't have.
That would be the only thing, and I did somewhat bring it up when it got moved last time and said,
Yeah.
you should probably have that straightened out, just so it doesn't look like we're just saying, well, we create stuff, but then we go against it, which is essentially what we're doing. So Yeah, I put it, Councillor, I put it in front of council, so it's not my decision or boards, we put it in front of council. Yep, the motion carried, by the way.
And so I'll just, I think in this case, the bylaws were created by Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corp. Council has now, we've been told, and we've both acknowledged, both being council on the advice of the lawyer saying that we are a local board, and we've acknowledged that. This evening, the board sat, the 3 members of the board sat, and we've acknowledged that you received this advice, and therefore we are acknowledging that we're a local board under the Municipal Act, which means I think council can overrule a local board's decision. That's essentially what we've just done, is overruled Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corp's earlier decision of their bylaws. And those other amendments on the bylaws will be coming back to council, and we'll get all of this back where it needs to be.
Get it all straight. Okay, question. Yeah, Councillor Wilson.
One question just on the deputy mayor's comments. When we were advised by council, they took in the bylaws that we're now saying are not valid, so we can put on Councillor. To be fair, I have nothing against Councillor Kennis being on the board. I just want to make sure we're following the rules. But if we're going to use the bylaws as the reason to say that the corporation is a local board, and then say, well, the bylaws aren't really valid because it's a local board, now that the bylaws said it was a local board, it seems, because our council came up and analyzed that bylaw, that same document, and said because of how that's written, it says we're a local board. And from what I just heard, that now that it's a local board, we can overrule the bylaws and we can put someone on that's not on it. So it's just messy.
You know what, I'm gonna agree with you, Councillor Wilsey, and if you're, Councillor Derbyshire, wish to go back on, we will have 2 members from it, but as Deputy Mayor, we're trying to make sure.
I'll go back on it for now, just so that we're not, I just
Yeah,
don't
that's
like.
good. No, that's fair. If that's,
I'll go back on it till you get to your local, till we get this local board straightened out and you change your bylaws. Cause I just don't like that it looks like
No,
we're
that's
not
fair.
following stuff that.
no, and listen, let's
Well, I
have
guess
a
I'll
debate.
have to resign,
Okay.
so I'll do that.
Okay, someone bring a motion then to put Councillor Derbyshire.
Councillor Derbyshire.
Okay, someone to second the motion.
Can I second it? No.
Sure.
Yes,
All in favor?
Bad deal too, eh?
That motion carries. Thank you for your service, Councillor Derbyshire. Yeah.
I just want to, I think, an important clarification for those that are listening. We didn't make a decision that it's a local board because of the bylaws. We had council examine, and in fact, 2 council were with us last time. Two lawyers were with us who did an in-depth look at all of the stuff involving council and the Municipal Act and the Housing Corp, and said, you are a local board. And all we did was acknowledge. We received their report and we made a motion that we acknowledge that we're a local board pursuant to the Municipal Act. There was no decision that this is what we are. The lawyer said, you are a local board under the Municipal Act. And tonight, at the council, or at the board meeting, we just simply accepted that and said, yes, in fact, we are a local board because the lawyer said we're a local board.
Yeah. All right. At that debate, we'll move on. Next, reports from departments, legal and legislative affairs, amendment to procedure bylaw.
Thank you, Worship. Council might recall at the last meeting of June the 2nd, council approved the implementation of eScribe's Vote Manager module. And at that time, it was noted that we needed to amend the procedure bylaw to include the electronic voting. So that's the report I'm bringing forward, along with the amendment to the bylaw under the section, the consideration of bylaw section. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Pelkman, then Councillor Kennis.
I guess the only question I have is that as we implement the bylaw, we don't yet have a means to vote electronically. So what happens in the in-between?
So if you look at the amendment in the report, it does include any other means as well, as per the call of the chair. So there will be, council will be electronic voting, but some of the committee meetings may not be. So until we get to that final implementation, the bylaw will cover everything off.
Councillor Kennis.
Same thing, so that was.
And then Councillor Wilsey.
Just reading the bylaw, it says each member present. So just a question for that. What if we have somebody virtual and they're on Zoom? How is that covered in this bylaw?
They are still present, just participation is electronically via Zoom. So it's not any different than the current section, which does also say each member present and voting. So if they're present even electronically and participating in the vote, it'll still count.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very quickly, I'm in favor of the motion, and thank you for bringing the information to us. But we're being asked to do more and more work and read more and more reports all at the same time, all on this device. And this device is not Strathroy-Caradoc's device, by the way. This is actually a county device that they let me use. Councillor Kennis and Councillor Hippel have a much smaller device, which I believe has been given by Strathroy-Caradoc, because that's what I was given, as is everybody along the line here.
except me.
So I'm in favor of it, but I would again go back to budget of last year, where we budgeted money to make sure that we get the electronic stuff we need in front of us. You know, we need eScribe up. People will see me frequently grab my phone as I'm searching for documents that I need to refer to that are outside of eScribe. And now, when a vote comes, I got to flip back to whatever screen it is where I've got to vote. So I'm in favor of it.
The CEO has an answer for you, Deputy.
Well, that's great.
He's got an update. Sorry, anyone cut you up, but he has an
Oh, that's great. Shut me down, please.
So currently, we're looking at all of the systems in this room because some of them are dated and causing us some issues from week to week, so we're doing that analysis. We've also just, as of last week, there's some new technology that came available through one of our suppliers for touch screens for the front, for each council desk. We have 1 or 2 of those on order that we're gonna pilot to make sure they do what we want them to do and the council's happy with them. But that will give you your device screen and a touch screen. Now, the touch screen won't work until we, it will work maybe for Councillor Wilsey because he's got a PC in front of him. But you have to still use your iPad if you're, for the time being. When the next piece of it is that we want to bring a policy in front of council for the turnover of council in each election and state the type of equipment that we'll buy and supply, so that when the new council forms up in late 2026, 2027, they will have a suite of equipment that's supplied by the municipality that works with the system we have in the room. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, there are 2 motions. The council receive the report and that bylaw number 75-25 be referred to the consideration of bylaws section of the agenda for approval. Councillor Pelkman, second by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that motion carries. Thank you for the work, Jen. Building and planning, there is an OPA report on Saxon Road valuation, BBP-2025- 50, Mr. Williams, I believe you would be given that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is a application that was submitted in 2024 for an official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. An open house was held in the early part of 2024. A statutory public meeting was held in August of 24. And then changes were made to the application as a result of comments that were received during that statutory public meeting. It resulted in the property or the area being considered for the official plan and zoning to be expanded, which resulted in a second statutory public meeting in June of 25. Since that time, there were a handful of items that were outstanding that the developer needed to look at with their consulting team. Those items were adjusted as required. I'll get into those in a moment. I'll just, since we're on the proposal page, I'll just note that this is a development for 2 8-story apartment buildings, fully residential, resulting in 184 dwelling units. It would completely meet parking standards There are some development standards that need to be adjusted as a result of the nature of this development. There is a transition to the area to the south, which is there are homes to the south, and there's a transition from those single story dwellings with townhouses on this site, 36, acting as a I'll call it a transition, and that was one of the changes that were made over time with this application. So if we move to the next slide, you'll see this is the current proposal. Some have called it an octopus or something in the center. That's a common amenity area surrounded by parking areas. You'll see two sort of rectangles on either side in the northern part of that picture. Those would be the two apartment buildings set as far away from the bottom side of the page where there's existing dwellings. And there's a row of townhouses, back-to-back stacked townhouses, actually just back-to-back, not stacked townhouses, that run along that portion of the southern portion of the property, if north and south were at the top and the bottom of the page, but that's close enough. Saxton Road is on the right-hand side, and this is a part of the Strathroy Crossings commercial. Moving to the next page, we'll just quickly see that original concept that continued to have commercial on a portion of this property. So this is the old plan, and as you can see, they've essentially moved the density northern or up and created that transition. So if we move to the next page, you'll note that there were some items that were raised during the different meetings. These things have all been addressed. Capacity questions, single access points, there's now confirmed two, and details on how that would occur. Outstanding questions about noise, just to make sure that the reefer trucks and other aspects of the Walmart would not negatively impact the apartment building. I'm reminded as I'm reading this list that during the council meeting, one of the members of council also asked about the separation distance between the apartment building and the newly constructed municipal drain. And I can confirm that it's approximately 9 meters away from that structure, and they're not proposing to go too deep with the apartment building, so there will be no impact on the existing municipal drain or the new municipal drain. Moving to the next slide, just speaking to policy, there are no, obviously, requests for changes to the PPS. That says policy, it's planning statement 2024. And in that policy statement, or planning statement, there is additional details on how, if you're going to be converting lands from one designation to another, that you have to look at the land needs assessment. And this is one of the pieces that the developer and consultant worked on for some time during the time between January and today. And that was to show that still there is a surplus of commercial lands within the Strathroy settlement boundary. This conversion will probably, this is basically the last one that could happen, and then there wouldn't be a surplus in the next with the supply. The supply will meet the 30-year criteria of the PPS 24. And there's still a demand for residential, which would be something that's being addressed through the municipal comprehensive review. So from a county official plan, this is in a settlement area, and a local official plan, it is commercial right now, and that's why the official plan amendment is seeking a change to residential. There aren't any other special policy requests as part of that. And that's one of the items that are in front of council this evening. The second is the zoning bylaw amendment, which seeks to make changes, well, first to change the zoning from highway commercial to high density residential. And there are some site specific items. One, they're looking to have a covered parking area, and that's considered an accessory building, even though it's not got four sides. It is considered an enclosure of sorts. So they're asking for a setback reductions for that purpose. And there's a rear yard setback reduction to there's a center property in the Strathroy crossings area, and this would be a reduced setback from the setback requirement is 15 meters. They're asking for 9 meter setback, but it's set back to a commercial use rather than one of the other residential uses to the south. The building height, there's a request for that building height to be increased as well, and that's to allow the 8-story building, whereas you may only in 15 meters may only reasonably get maybe 6 stories possibly. So those are the sort of major areas of adjustment that are being requested. If I could move to the next slide, it's just talking about next steps. So planning staff are recommending approval of the OP and zoning bylaw amendments. Because it's consistent with the PPS, it's conforming with the official plans and represents good land use planning. Council will make a decision on the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw would be then in an appeal period. The official plan would move forward to county council for a decision at that spot. There are 20-day appeal periods for both of these amendments. I'll leave it at that and happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Pan. Then Councillor Pan.
Just so I understand, there would be an entrance off of Saxton, and then there'll be an internal road. So is that going like along the, so from Saxton all the way to Adelaide Road? So they'll be able to, is that gonna be like behind the Canadian Tire? Like how is it gonna get to Adelaide Road?
It's there already.
I'm kind of confused.
I'm happy to answer that. So it's possible that if you, well, there's a couple of different parts to this. One is, yes, it would come off of Saxton Road. There is an existing network of internal roads that you can travel adjacent to the parking lot of the Walmart. Then it runs from that parking lot over to the parking lot where the LCBO is. I could pick a different item, but I think we're going for the alcohol choices. And then from the LCBO, then we would go to Canadian out to the lights. That's how you would get to Adelaide. You could also get out to Carroll just going through the parking lot of the Walmart from this site. So there are a couple of different options for that second access. And then there's an additional option once the site directly to the west or to the left of this it gets developed in the future. Right now there are no development plans, but once that piece gets developed, there would be other sort of routes to make it.
Okay. Councillor Hill.
Thank you. Through yourself to Tim Williams. So I have a few things. Actually, your answer to Councillor Pammer kind of concerned me too, because that parking lot is busy and it's small and it's you can't. The sight lines on it are not great. So using that as a road for someone to get to Adelaide or someone to get to Carroll through the parking lot to me would be extremely dangerous and extremely busy with the already very busy, with the people that are going to Walmart and the liquor store, et cetera, et cetera. So that's actually concerning. But anyways, I wanted to ask a different question. Sitting here, I think, off the top of my head, I'm gonna say we have looked at 5 maybe different developments that have come to us over since I've been here in that area. Maybe 4, but I'm thinking 5, but let's just say this is 5. But if we change the zoning on this, and I mean, I'm not saying that I think this is bad, but I do remember that several times we've looked at different types of developments that were going to be commercial, no industrial obviously, but commercial, like doctor's offices and things like that. And it was going to be all built around there, and we thought that this was going to be a great thing. If we change the zone to what it would be now, what we're looking at right now, if this doesn't go through and someone says, hey, we would like to change it back, can we do that? It's just, yeah.
Through the mayor, appreciate your first comment, and I might say that there, just on the internal driveways, there is an actual driveway that this would connect into, not driving through the aisleways of the parking lot to get from this site out to Adelaide. You are correct insofar as you could make it through the aisleways to get out to Carroll and that traffic light, and yes, it would be traveling right in front of the store, where I certainly respect and understand where you're going with in terms of people coming and going and all that. So there's that piece. You asked the question about, yes, there have been applications on this property, probably in the range of more like 10 since 2012. Applications where additional uses have been added to the property over time to make it more flexible, various different options and offices and doctors and other things. And even as recent as a minor variance in 2022 to allow for a hotel operation to occur here. And so staff will receive any applications that come forward, and if it were to change or look to be changed back, that is certainly an option that can happen. I think we just need to look at, we'll have to look at it at the time that it comes in and the nature of the application that they're proposing.
Yeah, follow up.
Oh, no, it's not a follow-up. This is my last question. And maybe a comment. So that road itself, Saxton, is a very busy road. We have stoplights on Carroll that go actually into Walmart. Knowing how busy that area is, I mean, to get across the road across Carroll would be crazy. And I would hesitate to say that might be somewhere that the county and our municipality would have to talk about some type of lights or crosswalk or something. Even though it would be silly because we have one right in front of Walmart, but at the same time, it's going to be with all of the traffic and all of the people living there. I think that might be something that we need to think about. Anyway, more of a comment.
Thank you. Councillor Pell.
Yes, thank you. I have absolutely zero concerns about the traffic. If this was left as commercial, those parking spots will flip all day long. As residential, they don't. This will actually be less traffic than if it was left as commercial and developed. So imagine if you had another plaza like the LCBO Dollarama Plaza and the volume of cars coming in and out of that every day, as compared to people who primarily leave at the time of day when they go to work and when they come back. It is much less traffic than a high volume commercial enterprise. On the flip side, that land has sat vacant now for some 20 years, and putting 5 in there, to me, I hope will spur the rest of it to develop, because for just our own income generation, we need to have that commercial property developed, and it will help the community as a whole to get some kind of commercial services in there.
Councillor Wilsey.
So just in relation to parking, I know this one meets all the parking standards, but has Walmart or the landowner of the Walmart next door, if it's not Walmart, being consulted? And the reason I'm most interested in that question is I'm familiar with a few other subdivisions and areas with townhouses and a lot of units condensed, where there's parking that is being used on adjacent lots. Like one good example is the Caradoc Community Center. There's lots of cars there that park because there's not enough parking in that townhouse development, and this seems to be worse, and that parking might overflow into the Walmart. And just seeing if we've consulted them or if there's any comments back from them or anything that we can do or work on that.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. So what I would say is that Walmart has been consulted throughout the various different applications and occasionally do speak to the applications. In this particular case, they received a notice for the 2 statutory public meetings through Strathroy-Caradoc. And then at the end of the statutory public meeting in January, I did raise an item that some of the landowners within 120 meters some of the people within the Strathroy crossings area are further than 120 meters away from this site, so they wouldn't get notification. The prepared a letter that they sent out to each of the owners, noting that if they wanted to talk to either staff or to them, that they were open to have a conversation about that. Walmart did not reach out to me. I did speak with the representatives from Canadian Tire. They were 100% on board with the application moving forward.
500 consumers sitting right at their doorstep.
The other property that remains vacant, it was not. They did not contact us. The property between Walmart and the LCBO is owned by this as this piece today. So that's the group of owners, and I've kind of talked about each one of them there. I think so. That gives you an idea where we're at.
Okay. Any other? We'll go with Councilor Derbyshire, then Councilor Hall.
Thank you. I just want to go quickly and say I think this is a great design now. I think you've addressed the concerns that were with the neighbors to the south, as we're calling it. I just want to make sure that we definitely have some sort of barrier buffer, as I see our parking now faces that way, so that lights aren't a distraction there. Same with the laneway coming in, make sure that whatever we have going on, whether it's trees, shrubs, fence, blocks, so that we're not hitting people with headlights as they drive in for the neighbors to the south, I guess. But it looks to me like they had a fence already here, some trees. I just wanted to make sure that I did put that in there and voice that concern. But otherwise, I think it's excellent.
Okay, Councilor Balkman, then we'll bring it to a vote.
I was actually going to move the recommendation that's on the...
Feel free, go for it.
I just did.
Okay, all 4. Seconder to move all 4. Councilor Kennis, all in favor. Opposed, if any, that carries. Thank you. Tim? Next is Community Services, the Pool Pass Lending Program. Let's speak to that, Mr. Littlemore.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just quickly, Paul Latimore's in the audience. Should there be any questions I can't answer. Quickly, the county reached out to us, the county library, on a swim pass program that's modeled after another program in a neighboring county. And so we've presented to council that we'd like to donate 3 family passes to the program, 1 being positioned out of the Mount Bridges Library and 2 positioned out of the Strathroy Library for the library system to manage. So the intent is for them to hand out the pass to a family for a week, and then the pass would come back again to be handed out to another family. The cost is minimal at $769.92 for all 3 passes for the season.
Okay, before we move to questions, motion, there are 2 motions in front of you. One that we received a report, second that council approve the Pool Pass Lending Program. Councillor Pelkman, second by Councillor Hippel. Are there any questions? Councillor Wilsey.
Will there be a report at the end of the program through the worship to either the director or anyone else who wants to answer on how much the passes were utilized, and just to make sure it's good value? If we're putting 3 passes of Christ, could maybe go to other families just in case they're not used?
Director Littlemore.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, we'll be asking the library system to provide us with that information to determine whether the usage was there and worthwhile program.
Questions? Seeing none, we have second motions. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Those motions carry. Seniors focus groups, Director Littlemore.
Through the chair to council, again, Paul Lattimore is in the room in case there's questions or further details needed, but staff did execute the seniors focus group as directed or requested by council back in, that would have been December of 2024. So we did have a number of different focus groups that was identified in a report back in March. This report is just tabulating the results and providing you with the information that we garnered from that from those sessions, and that the ideal seniors programming idea is they're looking for a dedicated senior space. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be just a senior space, but they want a place where they can congregate. So they were clear that it can be intergenerational when we did meet with them and had the conversations, but they are looking for a space where they can congregate and socialize. So at the end of the day, the department does provide programming to the seniors in the community utilizing our existing facilities. We have expanded the programming that they previously received a number of years ago and able to do it in our own facilities. That being said, there is a facility that we do see that there has potential to provide some of this, meet the requests of those seniors from that focus group, and that is at the Caradoc Community Center. But there is, if we were to convert it into a recreation center, because it is primarily designed at the banquet facility. It's got a concrete floor, which is slippery when using. We do get some comments from groups who are using it for pickleball currently. So we would have to look at what type of floor we would be putting in there. We would have to look at redoing the ceiling, because right now it's just a supported, suspended ceiling. So if we put active programming in there, we have concerns about ceiling tiles falling, should balls hit them, light fixtures and so on. As well as there's some additional works that would need to be done from a plumbing perspective. With regards to the age of the building, it is 25, 30 years old. So there will be some other works will need to be done in the future in that building as well.
Understanding there's going to be some conversation about this, I'm going to ask that the first motion is simply to receive the report so we can open for conversation. So I'm going to make a motion to receive the report. Councillor Canis, second by Deputy Mayor, all in favor of receiving the report. Thank you. Now we'll open it up for discussion, and I'm going to go first if you'll indulge me, because I do champion the need for a seniors area. I too was concerned with the capital request, but then I did see the wording in there that Director Littlemore, you're just requesting that we discuss this at the next capital. So tonight you're not seeking approval for any capital expenditure, correct? You're just asking that it be put forward at the next budget discussions. Am I correct on that?
Through the chair to the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. So that was my concern, like a lot of people. And then just full disclosure, Director Littlemore and I did have a discussion today about this, and I think to jump in with both feet maybe get a little ahead of ourselves. I did talk to Director Littlemore about the possibility of a trial program. You come back, because there is a bit of a communication sales pitch we have to do to the residents of Strathroy and to see how this goes. But I did speak to Director Littlemore about the possibility of a trial program before there's anything about any capital or any renovations, because again, need to make sure that people will go there, and I did also ask Director Littlemore about the possibility of an ad hoc committee of seniors. I don't like the term senior because I'm there myself, whatever the right term is, for their input in it. So I just want to put those out there for the group, that Director Littlemore's not looking for money this evening. Just I understand that we need to trial it and see how it works before we go any further. With that, said my piece, I'll open up to Councillor Hippel, then questions.
Thank you, through yourself. So we've been talking about the fact that we need to be using the facilities that we have within our whole entire municipality. And we're constantly discussing, how to make the most of them and how to be inclusive. And so to me, it just makes sense. I mean, it's, oh my gosh, it's a lot of money, and obviously we're not giving Director Littlemore the go-ahead with all the money at this point. But obviously, option 2 for me is very, it was very positive in a way that I wondered if there was a way we could, use it for. I like the trial side, but I mean, you don't want to get rid of. You want to be able to use it and do all of the things, but you also still want to be able to use it for the banquet centers or banquet hall when necessary. It's kind of an all-in-one. You would like to be able to still use it in all-in-one because you've got how many rooms there? You've got that really large area we had it's 3, right? Plus the huge kitchen, which we've been in. You've done lots of children's programming there because I've been there when you've done that, and there's many meetings that have been held that are being hosted there. I don't know, I think it's a great thing. I didn't understand why people complained about having to drive to West Middlesex. They really liked the senior center downtown, and they said, well, we have to drive now to West Middlesex. And I said, well, didn't you drive downtown? And they said, well, yes, but now it's a longer drive. Well, yeah, now we will probably get complaints on this as well, if this is what we're looking at. But at the end of the day, senior isn't 80 plus. Senior is, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd love to say it's not my age, but it's like 55 and up. And I think we need to be able to look for something that is inclusive of all age groups when it comes to senior, I was going to say senior adventures, but senior recreation. Anyways, I think it's a great thing. I think option 2 is a great thing. I see nothing wrong with it. And I mean, what a great way to be able to use our, I always call it CCC, but our Caradoc Community Center, and be able to use our facilities as much as we possibly can. Anyways, that's it for me.
Thank you, and Councillor Hippel, being a senior is an adventure someday. Councillor Pammer.
Yeah, I too think it's a great idea. I'd like to see perhaps a plan to roll it out incrementally, if you will, like the trial, I guess is what you're saying, but where we do it in stages, where we announce it, working with the communications department. I think we need to communicate that very carefully and very intentionally, start to use it as a senior center, back to us with some specific plans of what is needed and what that might cost, to kind of keep rolling it out. But I think I'd like to see more of a plan and kind of a phased in approach to see what the uptake is and to get feedback before we just jump into renovating something.
Councillor Wilsey, then Councillor Palmer. Go ahead, Greg.
So I guess my concern is just knowing that it's used, and there's a number of groups that already use that. We've got VON does an exercise program there. We have Scouts doing it there. We have our pickleball program. I think there's a third-party pickleball program that's there. There's a lot of stuff that's already going on there. And one of the biggest things that I hear from the community is that the schedule changes in the summer, and a lot of the people who have their programs going from September to June are kicked out, and they have to find different spaces. Like there was a lot of people who were upset last summer, which we didn't communicate very well because our programs all had to be relocated, and they were scrambling, and ended up the programs ended up being moved to the Mount Francis Legion. just because they weren't able to rent the Caradoc Community Center. And some of them were just canceled for the summer, and a lot of seniors were upset by just the change in schedule, and why should their schedule be dictated by the school year when there isn't really any day camps that are being held at that facility. So I think if we're gonna look at that as a senior center, we need to look at what's gonna be there all year long. It can't just be seniors. There is a lot of younger people that are there as well. And also, just as a note, I'm not a senior. I try to go to seniors programs. Through our website, I can't even register to go to a program, which, you know, even as a counselor, I'm not even allowed to go and just talk to people at some of the pickleball. But anyways, that's my own pet peeve. I wanted to just talk about it.
Don't push
You'll
it.
get there eventually.
Councillor Pelley.
Maybe if you don't like the term senior, you could use those that qualify for the shopper's discount. So I was on the senior center board for about 7 years, and a couple things that I can support through this, and one thing I'll caution about. What didn't work at the senior center was having volunteer people running programming. So whatever we do, the staffing component to drive the programming is incredibly important. And I see that the third motion is council direct staff to include their 2026 operating budget, any funds that may be required to provide additional recreation programming. So that means staff, correct? Yeah. So I see that as more important than whatever physical things we're doing. The staff have to drive the programming, and they got to champion the whatever programs are going at. Whether or not VON's in there or whatever, I can tell you that is what sunk in a lot of ways the senior center downtown, was because so many organizations were using it and had their sacrosanct times that it was next to impossible to create new programming. If you're gonna have programming, it's gotta be consistent and regular. Those seniors can bank on the times. It can't be, well, this group uses it the third Thursday of every month, and so you can't do any programming then. And yeah, that's gonna mean maybe some current users are unhappy with it. At the end of the day, the goal would be to better utilize an asset in the community and to drive greater programming. If the numbers turning less, then we would have failed in our task. An important thing to remember is that Twin Elms is a very active recreation center. Jaslow Properties has their own center. Trillium has their own activities, and certainly my workplace has their own activities, although probably my residents wouldn't attend in great numbers the senior center because they're probably not mobile enough to do so. The one thing that I would caution about in the report, there was a request for some kind of food thing. The senior center downtown did do that. It was a massive draw on funds with no or very little reclamation of funds for the cost that was put in, and also puts us in direct competition with the private sector, which I don't think we should be doing. The question I would have of the director, which I did not see in the report, is there wasn't any talk about user fees. And so we did have a discussion at the last CDAC meeting about the percentage of user fees versus cost. And so whatever we're doing, we need to, from day one, make sure our user fees are appropriate to the cost and not in a massive way subsidizing this programming. So if an exercise class should be $7, it should be $7 and not $2. Because if we set that standard from day one, it'll be impossible to move away from it later. So just whatever, as we're going through this process, realistic expectations need to be set so that people don't have an expectation that it's going to be a freebie for a certain sector of the municipality. It should be the same as everything else. We do subsidize other recreation to the tune of about 60%. So I would expect that's the level we should be expecting from any kind of seniors programming that we do.
Okay, we'll go Councilor Derbyshire, then the Deputy Mayor. Go ahead, Bo.
Thank you. I'm somewhere along the lines as well. When I looked at a lot of what's going on here, I see cards, healthy cooking, book club, dance, cooking classes, social cafe. It seems to me with 3 rooms, obviously one large room, I think we could accomplish putting these programs together, source before we go and spend any money on renovating this place. If it doesn't work out for seniors, as in, we did only get 4 that attended even the survey from Mount Bridges. At some point, maybe we have to think that it's more Strathroy that kind of needs it or wants its senior center back. I do know when we talk about programming in Mount Bridges, we do receive a lot of emails and phone calls in regards to day camps for kids over in Mount Bridges. I know I have personally received numerous ones asking why we don't have any programming like that. This is different than senior, but I just mean if we can show that there's viable programs and people will come to it, then I have no problem looking at possibly converting to a senior center. But at this, it should stay the community center and put the programs in there and see if they work.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, and then...
I'm just going to work right off of your last comment, Bill, because you went exactly where I wanted to go and to ask. I've heard 2 different concepts going on and being used interchangeable. So Caradoc Community Center as a place where we can look at putting more senior programming. Sorry. And then it's being it seems to be being used also with, well, we need a new community or senior center. So I'm just looking for clarity. I guess at council, when we're talking about it, are you talking about wanting just simply a dedicated senior center? And I understand that's what the seniors would like, but it's very difficult to take one segment of our population and say, you get a multi-million-dollar building for only your use, as opposed to the Caradoc Community Center has many uses, and we're trying to find a place to facilitate more seniors programming. I guess that would negate dedicated independent space for one specific group, because I think if we start doing that, then we better start looking at however many other groups that are going to want independent dedicated space.
I can answer that. That'd be the latter one. Space, multi-use space for all generations, all activities, not a dedicated space. So any follow-up, I just wonder, council, bring the last 2 motions and maybe add a 3rd one that directs staff to put together a rollout plan. I think that's what we all asked for with some kind. So if someone wants to bring a motion, I'll be amenable to that. Councillor Kennis. Was your hand up to bring a motion?
Yep.
So
as you were suggesting, these 2 motions, and I should put my microphone on.
yes,
These 2 motions, and then whatever the
just a rollout plan.
a rollout
implementation
plan, and just to comment on that, everybody's got to learn to work together in things like this to make them work, and it's better that they be too busy. My concern is that you spend a lot of money on something and nobody shows up, and I think that's what we're trying to avoid here. I'd rather it's be too busy than not busy enough. So
that's your motion. Councillor Pugman, were you going to add to that or second the motion?
No, I just had a question because you know, I heard a number of people say that the second part of that motion is not what they wanted.
So, which part? Okay, so we have the motion.
That the capital budget come forward to include renovations.
That's fine, whatever council wants to do, that's up to me. The word is request, right? We're just going to bring it forward.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if there, well, there's been a motion on the floor, hasn't been a second, that, are we looking to amend the motion to maybe alter that second part, that we find some kind of trial phase where we're not spending large capital dollars?
I think that was the idea, Councillor. Just exactly that, right? But we also.
Right, but that's not what the motion says, so.
Okay, go ahead, I'll let council bring the motion.
If I can, like, I'll back out of the one that was there, and it sounds to me like really asking to do a pilot project at this point, without spending any money, just to see what future interest is in a larger, better financed capital and operating program.
Yeah, we need, so trying to wordsmith a motion here, so Councillor Pamela, Councillor Derbyshire.
I think we also wanted to include, we probably need to include the third part, which is the operating budget, since we'll be going into budget discussions pretty soon.
Yes.
So I think that what we want to do is remove the second piece and then replace that with some sort of rollout plan or pilot plan, but we'll include the operating budget funds for 2026.
Councillor Derbyshire, just we're wordsmithing there.
Oh, no, that's what I was gonna say. You know, it should be something along the lines of that we set up the programs in place and run a trial period, while we also direct council to include in their 2026 operating budget any funds that might be needed to run these programs.
You mean staff, you say, Councillor? Yeah.
I don't know.
That sounds like a good.
So they're gonna set up the programs on a trial basis. Whatever funding's needed for that, we'll supply that and then include that in next year's budget going forward. And obviously, we'll worry about renovations after we prove the concepts work.
Yeah, that sounds like a workable motion to me, council. Can you read that back to us, Jim? It sounds workable in my head. We'll see if the words come out.
I'm still working on it. Okay, so as far as I got was that it was going to be a pilot project, which encapsulates the trial period, that will include the operating funds for the 2026 budget.
Budget deliberations. Yeah. We're not pre-approving them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Someone to second that motion. Councillor Hippel, any further discussions?
Sorry, just
Go
one
ahead,
question
Paul.
on that. Do we need to supply any sort of funding for the trial program?
Probably.
Like that was kinda, do we have to set a number or, sorry, through you to the director?
Director,
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire, I was just having a quick sidebar with Mr. Lattimore. And for us to develop a program, an implementation plan, pilot project, based on summer camp going on right now, based on being down a staff person, so we don't have a program coordinator at the moment. So we will work on an implementation plan, a pilot project, but we'll be looking to council for the 2026 operating budget to help fund the program that we come up with. We can bring back to council the implementation plan, should you like to see it prior to budget.
It's good then.
we're good. Okay, so we have a second in motion. Councillor Togman, sorry.
Yeah, I just, through you to the director and maybe to Paul Lattimore. Obviously, as you were putting the report together, you were thinking of some physical requirements to put on some of the programming that was listed. Do you deem it feasible to run a pilot program out of that?
Paul can jump in here if he likes, but the largest concerns that we have now is the flooring and the ceiling. So we'll just make sure that the programs that we're offering will limit that risk.
Okay, thank you for that discussion. All in favor of the motion? Opposed, if any, that carries. Paul, thank you for your work on that. And Rob, thank you to you doing the work on that. Next is the downtown beautification. Director Littlemore.
Thank you, Your Worship. The third and final report from our department tonight is just a request in front of council to do some beautification work in the downtown core of Strathroy. I'm sure many of you have noticed that the tree beds are filled with salt, or I guess not salt because that would all melt away, but the sand from the sand salt applications on the sidewalk, as well as the landscape fabric is working its way through. A lot of the stones have rolled off those beds. So understanding that the larger beautification project or street rehabilitation in Strathroy is a couple years away, we felt that it may be worthwhile to come forward to do some maintenance now, to look at those tree beds, rebuild them, put in some new product, as well as identifying some of the worst locations on the interlocking brick to level out some of those hazards along the sidewalks along Frank and Front. We did consider doing some work in Mount Bridges, but after some consultation with the Director of Engineering and Public Works, they'll be bringing forward during the process a program that will start that beautification project in Mount Bridges and taking that project, the larger beautification and street rehabilitation, starting it in Mount Bridges in 2026, if council approves that project. So we chose not to, at this time, to include anything for Mount Bridges. We will be doing some minor stuff, so we'll be going down and painting rid of the gray sandstone, painting them black, just bringing them up a little more modern, and we'll be dressing them up at Christmas time with some seasonal decor.
Okay, just gotta get it on the floor here first for discussion. So there are three motions. One, that we receive the report. Second is the council direct staff initiate immediately a cleanup and refurbishment of the downtown tree beds along Frank and Front Street. And lastly, the council direct staff utilize the funds from the Main Street Revitalization Fund of $76,979. Someone bring the motion. Councillor Palmer, second by Councillor Canis. We're now open for questions. Councillor Palmer.
Just in regard to the tree beds, the stones have always been a problem. In this redo, is there any consideration to giving a border or something to keep the darn stones where they're supposed to be? Because it's not even, I mean, people walk across them and they spill, but even after a good thunderstorm, that will push all those stones onto the sidewalk. So could you include some sort of barrier this time? Because I seem to remember when they first went down, talking about that. That's my first question. I have a second one, but.
Okay.
Through the chair to Councillor Palmer, we can look at some form of landscape barrier that we could include. I'm not sure how successful that will be, considering because what the roots that are pulling out of the ground that's creating the crown that's having the stones roll off. So we were looking at a landscape glue that you would spray on top of the stones that would help keep them from moving. That was another option, but we'll work with the landscape company who we'll be working with to see if there's other alternatives.
And your follow-up.
Yeah, because I think that's really important. The other thing is just, we just need more cleanup. I mean, I get commented all the time about how dirty the downtown looks, and I'm talking garbage. Garbage is not getting emptied often enough. Sidewalks not being swept. Even Saturday, I noticed like the gutters are just full of stuff, tree stuff, you know, I sweep my sidewalk in front of the store and I sweep it into the gutter. Eventually that has to get, you know, cleaned up. So I'm just wondering, I don't know, I know staff resources are somewhat limited, but it just feels like, and I get a lot of comments from people, that it feels like the town doesn't care about the downtown and just doesn't put a little elbow grease into keeping it clean. And I'm just wondering if that could be part of this beautification project.
If you want to follow up, or just go to Councillor Derbyshire for his question. Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. So on the tree thing, I remember us looking at the trees. There was going to be some extensive work needed to even maintain these trees. To keep them there, we were gonna have to put in this system that holds roots and makes this and that. I know it's probably gonna sound like blasphemy and people are gonna be crazy, but why don't we just remove the trees, put interlocking brick, and be done with this? Like, you're cleaning up leaves, you're sweeping off this, the roots are pulling it all up. This is going on when we do move to the beautification, or to the new program we have in root ball collection system holders and replace the trees every 10 years. And like, I understand the concept is we want trees downtown, but really and truly, trees downtown really don't work. You have infrastructure there, you have roots that are heaving up sidewalks, bricks, they're getting into everything. It's a noble concept to have trees downtown, but trees don't grow downtown. So, we're really, to me, it sounds like we're going to just keep spending money on something that we should just remove, get over with, and if people really don't like it that much, when we do the downtown beautification, we'll include trees back in. But maybe them being gone, people aren't like, oh, well, this is a huge thing. It can be a little trial period to see if we want trees.
I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that. Councillor Kennis.
Well, I'm not gonna comment on that, but I just think this is important that we do this. A lot of owners spend a lot of money on upgrading facades, and if we're not ready to go on the big dig yet, I think we should at least do some cosmetic things by repairing or redoing these tree beds. I was told by somebody that pretty knowledgeable in trees that probably the wrong trees were planted there in the first place, and so hopefully the next go round the trees will be more appropriate for the environment they're going to be in. And I've mentioned a few times about the bricks, especially in that corner at Frank in front. They're in pretty rough shape, and when the water starts to collect and it freezes and stuff like that, it's certainly, I think, a liability for the municipality as well. So I'm fully in favor of doing this, and I think the downtown people will be quite happy to see this done.
Councillor Woolsey.
Question just about the long-term plan for the downtown revitalization. I remember when, shortly after we got on council, there was a presentation that we received from the consultant, and we were told there's going to be public consultation meetings and about residents in both towns, and then it would come back to council, and then we'd look at that, and then we'd go back and forth. I don't recall any of that happening, so I'm just wondering with the timeline, how are we coming with the public consultation meetings and then coming back for council in time to get the Mount Bridges project on the next budget that this says? Because we've only got 3 months, and the government don't move that fast. So I don't know how we can get all the consultation and meetings and review in time to have a budget for next year.
I can turn that to Director Ortiz.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Wilson. The public consultation that we still need to do for those two projects. There was a draft plan put in front of council, I believe, some time ago. We are looking at the core intent of the design and what we want to achieve. It's a big project for the municipality. We need to make sure we get this right. And to me, that means engaging the public in some meaningful dialogue and really getting some feedback on some key questions, like Councillor Derbyshire's question about trees. There are a few design concepts which we really need to put some work into and evaluate, and I hope to do so, or can advance that this summer with some additional public consultations. In terms of timing, especially the Strathroy reconstruction is a major project. We are going to need some time to put into that. There might be an opportunity to advance the Mount Bridges work slightly. We still have to do some public consultation in Mount Bridges and some design work there as well. So 2026 is not off the table, but we have a lot of work to do ahead of us to meet that timeline.
You had a follow-up?
Yeah, so it's it's not guaranteed to be 2026, it's possible, but possibly also could be. I'm sure we set expectations with the residents, that's really what I'm looking for here, I'm not trying to get, like, if there's all that consultation, and if you're gonna do it over the summer, and then come to council, I doubt it's gonna be in the budget for the end of the year, I just wanna make sure we're setting correct expectations for the residents.
Yeah. Director Ortiz.
Yeah, thanks. Again, through the chair, it's ambitious. I will leave it at that. We will put it forward at budget time. The plan originally, I believe, from the Director of Community Services, is to have some additional planters and minor beautification interim measures in Mount Bridges to be incorporated into the next budget cycle as well. So we'll see how the engagement process goes throughout the summer. And I do be able to provide better update to council probably in the fall.
Okay, Council, I think we have 3 motions in front of you that have been seconded. All in favor of the motions? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you for your work, Director. Engineering Public Works, Director Ortiz, the 2025 asphalt resurfacing tender award.
Thank you. Through the chair to council, the report in front of you is an award to award the 2025 asphalt resurfacing program. It's recommended to award a contract to Steve Smith Construction in the amount of $596,957.50 for the resurfacing of Drury Lane and Railroad Street. Total of 8 bids were received, with Steve Smith Construction being the lowest. Project costs came in higher than originally expected, as the original budget assumed basic resurfacing, where after engineering review was completed, it was identified that additional scope would be required, including road widening and adding gravel to the roadways, among several other improvements. A total of $400,000 was allocated in 2025. It's recommended that the additional costs be funded through reserves. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, anticipating questions, asked to receive the report first. Councillor Kennis, Councillor Derbyshire, all in favor? Motion. Any questions? Okay. Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. I just was gonna ask, so when we brought on the engineering services, they are simply to be the project manager, or were they brought on because we needed a second opinion or something as to spending the extra money to widen the road as opposed to what it was presented as? Just wondering when we brought that forward, the bringing in the project manager off-site.
So,
Director Ortiz. Yep.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire. We've done this a little bit differently this year than in years past. We've identified roads and effectively left it up to the contractor to construct. This year we've retained BM Ross as an engineering support to provide additional engineering recommendations as part of the program. One of the things that they've noticed is that once they did their own investigation, that the condition of the roadway was it needed more than just resurfacing, and their recommendations are factored into the overall costs that are put forward in front of council. Timing, we awarded it earlier this year to BM Ross.
Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, then the motion in front of you, the last one is that the 2025 asphalt resurfacing tender is awarded to Steve Smith Construction Corp. For the amount of $596,957.57 plus HST to complete Drury Lane and Railroad Street. Someone to bring the motion. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Falkman. All in favor? Opposed, if any?
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Just reading the report actually says that we're doing GIP paving instead of.
That's an alternative.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, yeah, you're right. That's okay.
I was reading the wrong thing, that's fine.
That motion passes. Next is the 2025 sidewalk tender award. Director Ortiz.
Thank you. Through the chair, the report in front of you is to award the 2025 sidewalk tender program. It's proposed to award a contract to Fiorino Concrete Limited in the amount of $181,650.64 for sidewalk replacement in Mount Bridges and Strathroy. A total of 13 bids were received. Fiorino was the lowest. The project is within the available budget of $170,000 allocated in 2025 budget and $70,000 carryover from 2024. That leaves about $60,000 available within that project line item. Happy to answer any questions.
So there are two motions. First, that we receive the report. Second, that we award the tender to Fiorino Concrete Limited. Someone to bring the motion. Councillor Pammer, second by Councillor Pelkman. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any? Oh, sorry.
Do we need to add from the sidewalk debate or the cross light debate? Remember you wanted to add a section of sidewalk?
Sorry,
Is this
yep.
not where it would be done before we get voted?
Since there was available funds left over, I'm assuming they could be handled at the time through the available budget.
Director Ortiz.
Through the chair, if that proceeds this year to construction, yes, we could do that this year with the available budget.
Okay. Satisfied? Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that that was added in there so that.
Appreciate that.
We did. That motion passed. That's okay. Fire services, the fire department establishing and regulating bylaw. Chief Beasley.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I believe that you initially received a report in the last session with regards to some revisions and amendments to the operating bylaw, and I guess at that time there wasn't enough information. Certainly, I believe you've got that report in front of you now, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you. So there are three motions in front of you. Council received the report, council repealed the bylaw, and the new bylaw before the consideration of bylaws section of the next meeting agenda. Someone bring the motion. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Hippel. Councillor Derbyshire, is that a question?
I did just have a question about 6.1.2. Just wondered exactly why we're putting this in there, what we're covering by adding this to it. I believe it's the red line, which means it's coming in as a new thing. I just wanted a bit of an explanation as to why.
Deputy Chief Beasley.
Yeah, so through the chair, Councillor Derbyshire. That OREG is the Ontario regulation that speaks to statutory mandatory certification for all firefighters across the province. It just is being placed, as I understand it, into the rules and regulations to state that we will follow that mandatory certification for all of our firefighters based on their role and position within the fire department.
Did I say the wrong number? 612.
Oh, 612.
Sorry,
My bad.
That's okay. I wondered, I was like, no, that one was pretty clear.
Okay.
This one I think is too, I just wonder if why we're.
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire, I think that just points to the fact that whilst the operating bylaw says that we will provide a service, there may be extenuating circumstances where we don't have the sufficient manpower based to something else occurring within the municipality to give that guaranteed service without reaching out for mutual aid and or other help that may be required to deal with that situation. You know, within the operating guideline, we're going to bylaw, we're going to do this, this, and this, but there may well be circumstances that don't allow that, weather situations or situations tied up units elsewhere.
You got a follow-up there, Councillor?
Yeah, no, I just, that's good. Thank you very much for the clarification. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't, I just wanted clarification as to why we were putting in something that we might not be able to get or provide the service. It just kind of seemed like, just wanted to know.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Wilsey?
On section 4.2.1, we use a lot of the same numbers as Councilor Richard's question. When I asked Chief Bigrig about this at the last meeting when it came up, because I had a specific question about this, I was told that existing firefighters on the board would be grandfathered and would not have to do a forced retirement at age 60 if they failed the test. That answer doesn't line up with the language that's in this section. So I just wanted to see if existing firefighters will be grandfathered and if there's a way that we could record that. There are some who are nearing some higher levels of service, but they're not gonna meet their next pen level until after they're 60. Realize for safety issues, this is definitely a good thing. I don't wanna take this out, that's not where I'm going with this. But just wanna make sure that this policy is consistent with the MCR. If that requires a small change, maybe we have to do that, but just want to get some clarification there.
No. Deputy Chief or Director Payne want to chime in, because I do remember that question, Councillor.
Well, I'll go through the chair. Just in conversations that I've had with Chief Bigrig, his intention is that if you're on the fire department now, then this doesn't apply to you. This is grandfathered. So if you're on the fire department right now, then you continue along your current situation. But for new members hired, then this will apply for new members hired.
Right, and that's the same understanding I have, except the language here doesn't meet that. Could we put an addendum on that, or like a 4.2.2 that so it's only firefighters enlisted after a certain date or something? I just want to make sure that if for some reason there's a different chief on in 2 or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, that those firefighters still have that protection.
It's a fair question. Is there an answer to that question, Deputy Chief or Director Payne?
Through the chair, it seems like an HR question to me. Certainly, I'm sure.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Your Worship and Council, great question. I concur with your statement. I think we need to protect the language and put future language in there that in the event none of us in this room are in the future, I would recommend what you're stating is putting an amendment in there to indicate that grandfathering of existing staff. And I would put a date in there as well, so you know exactly what that date is.
Follow up, Councillor.
What I would like to make a motion that we add that addendum, but I would give, I don't want to delay putting this policy in anymore, but that staff put that in and we adopt these bylaws with addendum. I think that, I don't know if that's a friendly amendment or if that's a motion on its own. I'll have to defer to the clerk for how to put that forward.
Yes, so there is the motion on the floor. Move it a seconder. It hasn't been carried, so if...
I'll make an amendment, Councillor.
Yeah, I would like to make an amendment to section 4.2, that we add a section 4.2.2 that states that all current firefighters are exempt from 4.2.1 and that only firefighters who join the force after specified date I'm struggling with the language there, sorry, I just drew a blank.
Today's date.
Yeah, June 16th, 2025 are bound by 4.2.1.
Did you get that, Jen?
Yes.
Okay.
So are we just gonna add that? Is it gonna just a
Just
friendly
add.
amendment?
Has to be seconded.
There's a mover and a seconder for the three.
Right, so we're just gonna add that. So
So we're gonna
he's
add
making
that.
an amendment, so I need someone to second his amendment. Councillor Hippel? Okay. Councillor Palmer, then Councillor Pelkman after, yeah.
So this is probably an HR question. So this 4.2.1 makes perfect sense to me as to why somebody reaching their 60th birthday should have to go under an exam, an agility test, and a health test to continue. why would we grandfather people in? Are you saying then now people who are currently volunteer firefighters, when they hit their 60th birthday, they can just continue being a firefighter without these things? Doesn't that, what's the whole point of having this in here? Why would we grandfather people if I understand why you have this policy in the first place, I don't understand why we would exempt people.
Through your worship, Councillor Pamela, it's a great question. I think the spirit of grandfathering just fosters that rules have changed. That's the spirit of it. But to the point that you pointed out, health and safety first and foremost of the firefighter, I think that has to be first and foremost. Hence the reason there's a medical examination, agility testing there. I just want to throw a point out there that perhaps if you make it effective today for all firefighters, volunteer firefighters before today, this could go on for 50 years, right? Like you could consider that anybody that is in the current age of 60 is grandfathered under these conditions, but anybody prior to 60, but I understand what you're saying. Certain service medals are being driven to. I think council, we just have to make a decision, or you have to make a decision what's important. But if you grandfather everybody from effective today, that means this will go on for 50, 60 years, because there's young members as well, and they would fall under this if you make that motion. Another way to look at it is take your existing staff of firefighters that are 60 or greater, and then you can grandfather those people. Anybody prior to 60, but there's lots of equations to consider.
Okay, yeah, I think Councillor Buckman has been. Sure, go ahead, and Councillor. Yeah.
So currently, if you are a volunteer firefighter and you hit your 60th birthday, there's nothing in place that would require you retire or undergo any sort of medical or physical testing. Is that correct? Or is there something in place?
Through Chair to Councillor Paymer, that is correct. You just, if you turn 60, there's no requirement at all.
Okay. Councillor Buckman, then Councillor Derbyshire.
So just to play devil's advocate here for a second, the way I read this, to me, says that any volunteer firefighter over the age of 60 can continue as long as they're able to do the job. Doesn't matter when you're hired or when you came onto the service or not. My question would be, I'm 45, I've had 2 heart attacks, I can't maybe carry the hose anymore, and I'm still able, is there nothing that says I have to pass annual testing in the first place to be a firefighter? Because if there is, then I don't understand why we're putting the age requirement in, because as long as you're able to do the job, you're able to do the job. So, yeah, probably to the chief. The
Deputy Chief, Jeff.
Yeah.
Through Chair to Councillor Pellman, there is no yearly testing as it stands right now. I know that in the past we've had conversations about doing medical testing and looking after our firefighters, but we don't do that currently. It is, as it stands right now, you keep going until you don't want to go anymore. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. So all I will say in this whole debate is, if somebody at 60 doesn't understand that maybe their role is the accountability board or holding a sign or possibly just driving the tanker, at some point you have to understand your role is not going in and rescuing people unless you're absolutely needed. But the knowledge base of someone at 60 years old to come in and help teach the younger kids, that's crucial in a volunteer fire department. If you want a full-time squad, kick them out at 60, tell them thanks for your service, you can't do it. We are still a volunteer program who, as some of you know, some people are retired at 55, 58, who probably wouldn't mind showing up at daytime calls and performing as long as they can perform. I think if you're going to try to make somebody at 60 years old perform like they're 23 going into a fire and doing this, that, and the other thing, that's probably not the role they're going to do on the force as it is. So if they can do it, good for them. If they can't, I think in saying you gotta leave at 60, we just throw a whole bunch of knowledge and experience right out the window. So that's my take on it. I mean, I worked with older dudes. They were pretty good. They knew what they were doing, and they always had tricks for what to do, right? It wasn't just all brute strength. It was, sometimes there was some things that they knew that we didn't know, right? Like, don't throw the chainsaw up, tie it up.
CAO Browning. I'd like to broaden the conversation. This isn't about forcing anybody to do anything at age 60. It's just about making sure that the people who respond are capable of being on the scene and they're safe to be on the scene, to play whatever role they have. But when you establish the fire department, you also establish a level of service. And to have some people who show up, firefighters who've been around for a long time, are very experienced and knowledge, show up and are not able to carry out all the duties, and you have 5 or 6 of them show up and they're the only ones that show up, then you have a risk issue as well, on many levels. So this is really just to make sure that the people who are coming are in some sort of fit condition, medical condition, to do the job that they're required to. It is a risk management, and there are examples where there are other roles that people can play and stay on and be active. Might not just be the one that gets on the truck to go. And there's an example somewhere in the not too distant from here where there's a gentleman who's in his late 80s who's still active on the service, and his job is to put the door on, apparently. So. Did we have a seconder for Councillor Wilsey's?
We do, it's Greg. Yeah, it's Sandy.
Okay. So there are 3 motions in front of you. They've all been seconded.
Can I just make one more?
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Your medical examination is needed to maintain your D license. So that's a government requirement.
You get that every year?
Once you hit a certain point, it is every year. Right now, I think it's every 3 years. I think at 55, it's every year. 65, it's every year. So the physical agility test will now be performed by us. Is that who's performing it? Because the medical exam you have to have done by a doctor in order to maintain your license. So, like we start putting these things in, and are we moving more from a volunteer to a paid employee with said rules, ground rules, established rules? And we've already kind of talked a little bit about that. Like, I'm not, it is what it is, but you're already getting the medical examination in order to maintain the license.
Okay, thanks. So we do have a second motion, and we want a second motion to the front of us. All in favor?
Could you please read the motion?
Yep.
I'm not clear what we're voting.
Sure.
So
Go ahead, you read it.
4 motions on?
No, we received the report already.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You didn't receive it.
Did we receive it?
No, you did. You had, so that one's still out. So that was Mike and Sandy that moved and seconded the 3.
Yep.
And then there's an amendment on the floor that Greg made with a seconder, was Councillor Hippel. So there's 4 in total.
There's 4 motions.
Yeah. So the addition was, and correct me if I'm wrong, section 4.2.2 be added, which states that all current firefighters as of today's date are exempt from section 4.1.2.
4.2.1.
4.2. That's what I meant.
Okay. Are we good to go? So there are
Yes,
4 motions in front of us.
There's 4 motions, yeah.
4 motions. All in favor of those 4?
So we have,
I think you need to, don't we need to like separate?
Can I ask that they be voted on separately, please?
Sure, fine. First is motion to receive the report. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Wilsey. All in favor? Motion carries. Motion to council repeal bylaw number 07-18 is outlined in this report and approve the proposed bylaw. Someone bring a motion. Councillor Derbyshire, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 59-25 be forwarded to the consideration of bylaws section of the next meeting agenda. Brought by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Wilsey. All in favor? Carried. Now is the amendment. Can you read it back out, please? Thank you.
That section 4.2.2 be added, that states that all current firefighters as of June 16th, 2025 are exempt from 4.2.1.
Okay, so that motion was brought by Councillor Wilsey. It was seconded already by Hippel. Yes.
Maybe if I could, through you, Mayor, to the Deputy Chief. Is there anything existing right now that allows you to tell somebody they can't be on the service anymore?
Deputy Chief.
Through the chair, Councillor Peltman, in what manner?
Like if they can't do the, well, physically or mentally, it could be either. That they, anything that allows you to tell them they can't be a volunteer firefighter anymore. And I'm not saying that anybody would do that in any kind of vexatious way. It's just a practical reality that they can't be a firefighter anymore.
Through the chair to Councillor Peltman. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. Honestly, I don't think we've ever had that situation. I think Councillor Derbyshire said it best, that people know when they can't anymore, and they recognise by the very nature of the work, if they can't do the work, not only are they putting themselves in jeopardy, they're putting their brothers and sisters in jeopardy. So it's never got to that point. Potentially it's something at a later date maybe we need to look at adding. It would likely be a conversation and a mutual agreement, but I don't believe there's anything in there.
Councillor Pammer.
There's a quick question for HR. Is it actually, it's legal to tell somebody they have to retire at 60?
Through your worship to Councillor Pam, that's a great point. That's been often a labor debate for many, many years, mandatory retirement you're referring to. In this case, in this context, I think given the safety element to it, yes, it is fine. I think it does fall back to the safety of the worker in this case, and agility testing. So it is common to see, and I've seen in many full-time services with mandatory retirement in there. But it does, from what I know, it does fall back to that safety element. But the caveat to that is you could have a 70-year-old that's physically fit and still able to do the job, right? So that's the precarious part of the human rights application being applied here on that context. So.
Okay, so we have a second amendment in front of us. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed, if any? So 1, 2, 3, that motion carried. Next is the Strathroy-Caradoc Vision 2055. Dave Cash is joining us virtually. Floor is yours, Dave. Can't hear you, Dave. Need to unmute yourself. Nope, still can't hear you. Okay, Dave will just have the CAO speak to it. We can't hear you, so.
Yeah, I think it might be our sound, because he's getting circled like he's speaking on the Zoom. So it might be our speaker.
Yep. Okay, well, we'll have the CAO speak to it.
Through your worship, council will recall we had 2 workshops in May that were facilitated by Mr. Dave Cash of Cash and Associates, and it was an exercise to lay out the long-term vision for
conversation.
Sorry, there was a noise outside. We're just trying to figure out what it was.
the longer-term vision for Strathroy-Caradoc, based on some new population projections we received from the provincial government and some work we need to do in the future if the community for the types of activities that were identified with this council. As we know, it's very much a visioning document. It's certainly something that's going to be a little bit dynamic in its life, but it does start to lay out what this 30 years. And I believe that Mr. Cash has provided a final draft of his document based on council's feedback. And that's what's on the table tonight for you to adopt in principle.
Okay. Motion to receive the report first. Councillor Pelkman, second by Councillor Palmer. All in favor? Are there any questions? Councillor Wilsey.
Not so much a question, but a comment, just so that people who are watching this realize that when we went through vision, majority of council voted for this, but the one thing to keep in mind is that this is a vision of where we want to go. We don't have a financing plan to get there. We did talk a little bit about those challenges during the meeting, but this isn't something that, we know it's going to be work to get there, and we're going to have to figure out how to pay for it to get these things. It's this report was written with rose-colored glasses, thinking of the best for the municipality, and that's where the council would like to see it in 30 years. So I just want to put that out there. We don't believe we have unlimited money. We know we have to figure out how to get to there, but this is where council as the majority of council would like to get to within the next 30 years.
Any other, Councillor Pelkman?
Yes, thank you. You know, I've been on council for a long time, and I don't think we've ever had a conversation longer than looking at 10 years in advance. So for me, this was a very interesting process. I can remember a time when I sat on the AMO board that Brampton was basically growing in size by more than the city of St. Thomas every year, year after year after year. And so, you know, clearly this kind of long-range planning is required to be done if we're going to have sustained growth. You know, we just got a little taste of it for about 4 years in a row. It's scrambling. So I think it was a great exercise to go through. I'd like to thank Mr. Cash for walking us through it because it was hard at times to look that far in the future and put past your preconceived notions about what has happened in the past. I found it to be a very valuable exercise.
Not any other comments, questions? Okay. Councillor Kennis.
I'd make the motion that we approve the vision, and I look forward to reviewing it on my 96th birthday to see how it works.
Don't try to take your firefighter test. So there are three motions that staff be directed to use the Strathroy-Caradoc Vision 2055 to inform the ongoing official plan and comprehensive review. Further, that staff be directed to use the Strathroy-Caradoc Vision 2055 to inform the upcoming, for the wastewater servicing Class C environmental assessment, and further that Strathroy-Caradoc Vision 2055 be used as a guide in the development of future plans by the municipality, and that staff council adopt the Strathroy-Caradoc Vision 2055 in principle. Someone to bring Councillor Kennis, second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Oh, question? Sorry.
Sorry, I got a question here. So when we do this, and I asked it while we were sitting over discussing this, are we approving this for action so that they are now to write at the bottom of every report we have that says in consolidation of the Strathroy-Caradoc 2055 vision? Like, I thought this was more just kind of a guideline for us. We weren't putting this into, let's just say, action. Like, I think the last one there where it says this vision to be used as a guide in development of future plans, that kind of is the best way to say, look at it, see kind of what we thought, but it doesn't mean use it word for word. I guess that's what my concern was with this is, what are we going to use this for? Like, it's great in principle, but like you say, in possibly 2 years, none of this could be any good, and we're still using or a lot of things could have changed. Do we still use this? Or do we then have to re-motion not to use this as a guide? Or as your,
I'm gonna turn to the CAO, if you can answer that. So through you, Mr. Mayor, my experience is that I think and that this will last longer than you might believe it will, and that much of this in 30 years you might see actually come into fruition. But it is strictly a guide. It's what you foresaw or foresee the community in 30 years. All is the recommendations say is as we do our work, both as staff and as council, we keep the guiding the vision in our decision making as a factor. Health doesn't say we're actually committed to doing anything other than creating a community that we want to see in 30 years. And if you don't have some sort of dream for that, then it's really hard to achieve that. And that's really what the visioning document does, is create that dream. Councilor Paul.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things are written vague enough that, if you were looking at, for instance, redoing Caradoc through town, how would that look based on what our vision was? But since we have Mr. Cash here, maybe I'll ask him, what's the danger of not having a plan like this?
Can't hear you, right? So you can't.
Oh, you can't hear us? Sorry? Oh.
Yeah,
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we did hear you.
You did, okay. I've switched off my headset, so I'm on a different mic, so hopefully this works. Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor for on that question and the other councillor, if there isn't an overarching vision statement around, it's not the end of the world, but I can tell you that there are just so many things that the staff and others in the community can benefit from by having some kind of overarching vision for the future in place. It allows then all the baby steps that are needed to, move the community forward to be put in place in a way that makes sense. So, Councillor Derbyshire is quite correct. It's going to be reviewed and conceivably edited and varied a little bit in the future, but it includes population figures that are going to be updated from time to time. So, but the community is going to grow, and if you haven't got kind of a vision statement in place, then you really don't know how you want your community to grow and what things in the community you want to see and what things you want to preserve and the things that you want to work to eliminate. So it's without that kind of guiding light, all the individual decisions and steps that you make at council meetings are going to be just a little harder. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we do have the second motion in front of you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Good luck. That's really a great document.
Next is supplemental to Head Street Dam removal, the cost share for Strathroy-Caradoc. We have people here. Were you going to speak to it, or were we? Okay, go ahead. So, through your worship, if council recalls, we brought the report on the Head Street Dam to council at the last council meeting, and I misinterpreted some communication in the documents from the Conservation Authority as the costs that you approved were for the studies only, not for the actual removal of the dam. And Cox from the Conservation Authority is with us tonight, along with Ken. He was quick to call me the next morning and make that clarification. So we wrote the correcting amended report just to inform council of that. And if you have any questions, Greg's certainly here to answer the details. Yeah. Okay. Before we have questions, we have to receive the report. So council received the report for information for the council instructs staff on any further direction in this matter. Someone bring the motions. Councillor Canis, second by Councillor Colquhoun. Councillor Palkman, you had a question.
I did, thank you. Through you to the members in attendance, Mr. Wilcox, I guess in specific. Will this report that we're co-funding with you provide us options or only one end result, which is the removal of the dam?
Yes, so based on our last conversation where we had a wide variety of options, the direction was to pursue the phased removal option. So the continued studies and the acquisition of permits would be for specifically that option of phased removal of the dam. It's nothing saying that we would have to move forward with it. We'd be coming back at the end of this process to get that approval, but that was the option from council direction that we were gonna pursue further.
Any other questions? Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. I guess on the last report, which I don't have it up in front of me, but it did say that there was a cost of $300,000 to $800,000 for sediment removal that was included in all options except option 2, which I do believe was keep the dam the way it is. I think every other option has sediment removal, which is that included in the 1.1 million, or that would be then on top of that?
So each option had a different range of costs for sediment management. So some options were full sediment removal through dredging or other means. This option was looking at, there was I think a $300,000 budget which was for sediment management. That might be spot removals in certain areas. It may also be just costs of bioengineering to vegetate the existing sediment as we draw it down to try to stabilize it where it is. So that there's a cost within that 1.1 that was expected to be for sediment management. It may not be removal, or it may be a combination of removal and other ways to manage it.
Councillor Palkman.
Yes, thank you. One other question. I did express the concern at the last meeting about removal of the dam. At the moment, when we have those floodwaters come down, the dam slows the water up and the force. I am very worried about the big bend in Alexander Park and the erosion of I say our parkland, even though I know it belongs to the Conservation Authority, but the community, I believe, would see it as our park. To make sure that if the dam is removed, what are we doing to protect that big bend so we don't have erosion so far that people can't move from Victoria Street into the park?
So to address that comment, through the initial feasibility study, we did look at flood flows, modeling with and without the dam in place. And in your extreme flood events, the dam doesn't change the downstream flooding. It's a couple meters below water level. It seems as though the Head Street Bridge is really the pinch point. So we don't anticipate higher flood velocities due to dam removal. We are seeing significant increases in flooding just due to weather, upstream development. So we do expect to continue to see significant flood events, and as we took note from the last meeting with council, as we look at this, we will look to see if there's any solutions for that bend in Alexander Park as part of this process.
Okay. Councillor Kennis and Councillor Wilsey.
Greg, just the 1.1 million that it's sort of the cost estimate, it says half to Strathroy-Caradoc and half somewhere else. Is that, I understand from being on the conservation board that the conservation authority doesn't really have that much money. So would that be coming to you guys in the form of grant, or is that like an additional levy back to us again? So really we'll wind up paying for most of it.
So the cost share program that's currently in place is called the WECI program, so the Water and Erosion Control Infrastructure. It's a provincial fund that's available to conservation authorities. It's a 50% cost share with that local municipality. So the conservation authority share comes through that grant. There's not a guarantee. It used to be an annual grant. It looks like they're moving towards every other year as they've made it multi-year. So that would be what we anticipate half the funding would come from. The other half would be the municipality. And when it hits that time that we're ready to proceed, there may be other grant options that we can pursue. For some species at risk, there may be some other options where we can get additional funding to reduce the impact to the municipality. But the main fund we'd be looking for is that WECI program, which is 50-50.
Councillor Wilsey.
So based on that, I have one other question as a follow-up to Councillor Kennis's question, and then a separate question. You said that the planning was only going to go forward if we got the WECI grant. If we get the WECI grant for the funding, does that increase or decrease our chances of getting the WECI funding for the second portion? Because I heard you just said it was biannual. So maybe a three-part question. Does getting the first grant, does that delay or change the timing for the grant for the removal? And then the third question is more general in nature. What was the original purpose of the dam? Was it for recreation in Strathroy, or was it water control? Why was the dam built? I guess I still don't understand that part.
Okay, so I'll try to go to the first question. So the WECI program has a list of structures registered through it from each conservation authority throughout the province. So this is a structure listed with WECI. It's funded work on it before if there's been maintenance to do. So by getting the fund on the studies, it won't impact our ability to get the future funding for dam removal, because it's still a structure they have on their list. And this would actually, if we do a removal, it takes one structure away from that list for future funding for them. So it will, this is a 2-year project. We believe permits alone is a year task that would be necessary after we do a little bit more of the study work that has to be done. So we would hopefully be in a position to apply again 2 years later to the next round of funding. If timelines get adjusted and we miss that, when we can move forward with the next application for removal, if we get all our permits in place. As far as original purpose, this was put in at a time when the province was funding a lot of dams and reservoirs, and they were for accommodation, some were for flood control. This one and a number of the reservoirs and dams we have in place were focused on recreation. So it was a program for recreation. Unfortunately, through sedimentation, this was not a deep reservoir to begin with, and now we're seeing to where islands have formed and the average depth is in the couple of feet range. So the boat races that used to go on, a lot of the intention of swimming, we haven't had the appropriate water quality to do that since it was built, but a lot of those original intended purposes are not, it doesn't fulfill that anymore.
One more, Councillor Derbyshire, will bring it to a vote.
Thanks, just one more follow-up. Could this actually be a functioning dam that would help us control floods in our lowland if we say took the 500,000 that we're gonna have to give, or 600,000 that we're gonna have to give here to remove the dam, and actually put it towards removing the sediment and creating the dam that actually holds back a bit of reservoir, but during the larger rain periods, it can actually hold back and we can release properly if the sediment was down and it had the ability to fill up. Like, could we actually use it so that it's not flooding out our parklands and we aren't having to replace grass, sod, playground equipment, kind of that side of it, I guess, is what I wonder, instead of just removing it all together and hoping for the best. Maybe it's something where we spend the 500,000, remove the sediment, and try to use it like its intended function. And at that point, get it on the same as we would do with stormwater ponds on a clean out program, where it gets every 10 years gets cleaned out again.
Good question, Greg?
So it was not designed for that. It has manual removal stop logs. Somebody has to physically, a couple people have to go to the dam structure and lift and remove dam logs. And there's very little adjustment. This is not a system where we have adjustment of 10, 20, 30 feet where we can hold back a big volume of water. It's a very minor adjustment. So you would have to remove a lot of sediment to gain a very little bit of flood control, and only during that first initial rush of water during the storm, and then we're going to be flowing over the top anyway. So right now during our major spring events, we can be as much as 2 meters over the top of this dam. So it really has very limited ability to do any flood control.
Thanks, good questions. There are second motions in front of you, all in favor of those motions. Opposed, if any. Those motions carry. Thank you. Thank you for your patience, Ken. Next is the 2025 non-union market compensation review report. I'm going to turn this over to Director Payne.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this evening, we have invited Elizabeth Hill from Peston Associates. She's the CEO of Peston Associates. As council is aware, over the last several months, we've embarked on a project, compensation project for our non-union staff with respect to assessing where we sit in the municipal space to our comparator groups. So Ms. Hill has done the presentation and she'd like to go over the findings with them. And I've kind of echoed the report to the report that she's going to share with you right now. So I'd like to turn that over to Elizabeth Hill.
Thank you. Will it be put up for me?
Yes. Jen's
okay.
Yep.
I don't have the notes. So. Thank you everyone for having me here tonight. I'm happy to present to you the results of our non-union and council compensation review. I'm going to do a quick overview of the project mission and scope just so we're clear on what we are engaged to do. I'll talk about the process that we undertook and then talk about the market survey and recommendations with regards to staff, and then go into the market survey and recommendations for council. And then happy to answer any questions. So the mission and the goal of the project was to partner with the municipality to undertake a review of the non-union and council compensation. And what we want to do is ensure that it is competitive to the external market and review the current salary structure and salary levels. So the project success included completion of a market survey with comparator municipalities, review of current market position of the municipality, so where are you right now in relation to the market data, using the market data to develop a pay line with the external market review data, a comprehensive review of the non-union pay bands and salary grids with recommended new salary grids that are aligned to the market, and then provide recommendations regarding compensation plan for council positions. And so the market survey for the staff, so we selected a number of municipalities, and they're based on, we always look at a couple of factors when we're looking at comparators. So we want to look at what organizations, what municipalities have similar positions, similar services. So generally it's going to be ones that are of a similar size by population and households. And then we also always want to look at the recruitment piece. So what is the sourcement of recruitment and turnover? Where do you recruit people from and where do you lose them to? Those are going to be your competitors for talent. And so you want to ensure your compensation is aligned with that. So we sent the survey to 14 municipalities, 13 participated in the survey, so we got really good data. We didn't get quite as many municipalities on the council side, which I will show you when we get to that section. And we surveyed benchmark non-union positions for the staff. So benchmark means that we made sure we had a good selection of positions from each of the pay bands and each of the departments. So we have a good representation and sampling of positions at the municipality. So this is the list of survey participants. As I said, we had 13, really good sample of municipalities. I'm not going to read them all to you. I know you have them in front of you. So I'll just the next slide. So how we do the market survey is we provide a summary job description for each of the benchmark positions that are sent out to the organizations that we ask to participate. And it really outlines sort of the general responsibilities of the position and the requirements of the role. And comparator organizations are asked to complete the market survey, noting any difference in job description and title and how close a match their position is to the one described. And so then we look through the data that's provided and ensure that we're matching good data, so good comparators to the benchmark positions. We used market data and calculated the 50th, 60th, and 65th percent So what percentile means is it's basically a point in the data set. So if you were to, for instance, have 10 data points and you took the 50th percentile, that would be right, and 5 would be above and 5 below. 60th, you've got 40% above and 60% below. We did use the 55th percentile as the market position for the municipality, as that's what's been approved to this point by council. And so we use to guide us in developing the salary grids, but also want to point out that looking at those other data sets, that the staff positions at Strathroy-Caradoc are on average 4.6% below the 55th percentile and 5.9% below the 60th percentile. It's an average. Some positions would have been above, some would be below, but on average, that's where you stand today. We also asked the comparators what their compensation philosophy is, so how do they position themselves to the market? 8 comparators said they position at the 60th percentile, 2 are at the 65th percentile, and 3 comparators do not have compensation philosophies. Has no compensation philosophy at Strathroy-Caradoc is the 55th percentile. So when we developed the salary grids, we used the we used the market data and we used the job valuation scores, and we developed this pay line using a regression analysis that informs then what the maximum rate at the 55th percentile would be for each of the pay bands. And so we use that pay line, and that gives us the maximum, and then each pay band we stuck with your current structure, so there were no changes to how the salary grids were structured. It has 6 steps with 4% between each step. And so there's sort of 3 implementation options with a new salary grid. One is to move employees from their current move them from their current rate to a step on the new grid that gives them a bit of an increase. And that doesn't guarantee any increase. There's usually a slight increase for some, bigger for others. It kind of depends on the adjustment to the grid and where they are placed. The second option we looked at, and sorry, I have them reversed. I'm starting at option 3. So option 3, that cost is about $116,000. Option 2 would have the same sort of steps. So we'd look at moving employees from where they are currently to a step on the grid that gives them at least a 1% increase. So if the next step up is only 0.5%, they'd go to the next step to give them at least that 1%. And that has an annual cost of $163,000, $164,000, give or take. And then option 1 is what employees would see as the fairest. And that's where you move them from their current step on the grid to the same step on the new grid. So if they're at step 5 on the current grid, they go to step 5 on the new grid. Obviously, staff think this is fair. In the options 2 and 3, they could end up, if they're at step 5 now, they could potentially end up at step 2. So they argue that that's not, fair given their length of service. However, to be perfectly honest, most municipalities can't afford to do that and usually go with something like option 2 or 3. But again, staff will tell you that option 1 is the fairest. And I did just want to point out that, and as you saw on the slide with the compensation philosophy, that there is a trend in this municipal sector right now to move beyond the 50 and 55th percentile. And we're really seeing the 60th percentile being the most common. As you saw there, all your, the 3, we don't know what they do, but all the rest are at 60 or 65. And that's being caused by all the recruitment and retention challenges amidst the labor shortage that municipalities are facing. And they're really finding that they have to increase their wages in order to attract and keep the right people. So I did just want to point out, I'd be remiss in not pointing that out, that at the 55th percentile you are below your competitors for talent. And so this slide provides on the left side the current salary grids by band with the hourly and the annual, and then on the right side of the proposed grids. I can pause there if you want to ask any questions about the staff piece before I go into the council section, or I can keep going and do questions at the end.
Why don't we do questions at the end, 'cause we need to receive the report before we can
Absolutely.
answer questions.
Sure. Sounds good.
Go through the whole thing.
Okay, So for the council, council compensation review, this is the list of participants. We didn't have quite as many participate in the council presentation, or sorry, survey. And this is the salary data. So you see for Strathroy-Caradoc what your mayor's salary is, what your deputy mayor is, and what your councillor is currently. And then below it, we did the same data analysis as we did for staff. So you have the 55th, the 60th, and the 65th percentile for each of those positions. And really what it identified is if we look at the 55th percentile, for instance, well, really at any of them, the deputy mayor and councillor positions are below the market and the mayor is above. So what we would recommend if you want to maintain market competitiveness is that the deputy mayor and council salaries be increased to the 55th percentile to match the staff. And then we show there so the deputy mayor would be at 34,555 and the councillors at 26,341. And so an implementation cost for a full year would be 31,313. We did ask questions, not just on salary, but all the other benefits that are related to council compensation, and we found that really you're competitive in all the other areas, so there was no recommendations for increasing anything there.
Okay, thank you. So motion to receive the report first. Councillor Palmer, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor of receiving the report? Okay. Apologize, I didn't try to open it up for questions. Who wishes to start? Councillor Palmer.
So the proposed grid here for staff is at 55 percentile?
Correct.
So what I'm hearing you say is that would probably make current staff happy, but it's not gonna help us in our market attraction because we're still gonna be below market rate. Is that correct?
That's a fair assumption. Yes, you will still be below the market. Whether it will make staff happy, so it's a bit negotiable. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the lower pay bands don't see as much of an adjustment to their current grids as the higher ones. So I'm not sure I can state that all the employees will be happy with that.
Yeah, I guess most importantly is because we're in a competitive recruitment environment, even if we took this proposed grid, it will make us more competitive, but probably still not where we need to be. Is that what I hear you saying?
Below the market, yes.
Okay, other questions? Sorry, Councillor Pelleman.
Not so much a question as a comment, and I'll go back to my days as the chair of the Police Services Board. It became very obvious that that we as a municipality were traditionally low in pay, but when you looked at other factors, lower housing costs and such, you may have had lower pay, but an increase in how far that pay goes. However, since the housing costs have risen so much, we've lost that advantage, which is a problem. And we're obviously seeing that problem now as some employees have chosen to go to other places where they could get more money. So it's a difficult decision we're faced with, but unfortunately, I think a reality of the environment's changed and we have to react to it.
Okay, Councillor Wilsey.
On this, with whichever option we do, it's obviously something that's not budgeted. I'd like, through the worship speak, to hear from either the Director of Finance or the Director of HR, how we would fund whichever option council decides on. And if that would decrease reserves, or if it's unfunded, or just how we pay for that.
I think we'll go right to the Director of Finance.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, great question. I think I'm always reluctant to use reserves to deal with operation, simply because it's an ongoing, now we've got a shortfall that we've got to make up for next year. So reserves don't always jump to front of mind on these. The other option would be, in this year, we have set aside some money, customer service piece, so there is possibly some money there that we could look at. We'd have to get a little creative, I guess, once we get some direction from council, which way they want to head. Obviously, reserves are an option, but I just tend to stay away from them for operation. I'll pass it over to HR.
Thank you, Director. If I could just add to that, I think in the report that I provided to council, so the figures that Pesh has shown you is the annualized cost. So if we look at just numbers for 2025, the cost, numbers-wise, is $204,000 for this year only. And building off what Director Dakin was saying, then council could consider for 2026 budget what that looks like. Then it would become budgeted if council approved that, just as an option. The funding today, regardless of what option, I think Director is correct. We'd have to find whether come out of different consulting lines and what have you, piece that together for 2025. Then council can deliberate for 2026 future.
Councillor Wilsey.
So does that mean, because I know we're one of the big incentives we want to do this year was our customer service review and put that in, and we've got a Director of Economic Development is heading up that so we can make things better for our residents. I guess my concern, just to be clear, to everyone who's watching it, if we put this wage, are there places we can pull from and not degrade services or keep services the same? Or are we going to stop improving services? What is our plan to pull this money? Because I heard we could pull it from the customer service. We could use less consultants. But I've also heard from staff if we use less consultants, we'll get less projects done. I'd just like a clear answer for what we, depending on which option, how much we're going to lose and how much the residents won't see done this year.
Yep. Well, who wants to take a run at that? We'll go with Director Dakin.
So I think the ultimate answer is that we need to sort of decide how much we need to find, and then I think probably a prudent response would be for us to come back with how we're going to fund that if that's council's decision. And then at that stage, council would say yea or nay, I think would be the best way to put that.
Okay. Does council mind if I chime in? Because I'm just going to vote finding the money. I am in favor. I understand that we need to do this. We are starting to see real competitiveness in attracting talent. I know we're having a long time to find a chief building officer, but it's something I would like to do, but I think just given the budget pressures and the look at it, my preference is to defer it to the budget deliberations. I know what would happen in private industry again. Understanding I want to do this, but to find the money somewhere, seems like we're going to be robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and this was unbudgeted. So just so council knows, I'm in favor of doing it, but I would defer it to the budget deliberations. Who else has a question or a comment? Were you the Councillor Kennis?
Well, a couple of things. I wonder, I mean, we've been running a fair number of vacancies so far this year, so I wonder if there's some money there that hasn't been paid out because there's been vacant positions. The other thing is for council, that part we haven't discussed. We can forego that forever. That's not a concern of mine at this point, but for employees, I mean, we've lost a number of employees this year that were headhunted by other municipalities. And I would hate for us to see hate to see us lose more good people because we're not being competitive in our wage offering and not be able to attract. We can complain on and on about things not getting done, but if we don't have people in place to do them, how can they get done? And if we don't have capable people in place, we can't find good people. We're going to get further behind. So I think if we look at ourselves, we just passed a vision as a progressive municipality. I think we need to. I think we need to be in line, And, you know, I think every organization is going through that, the pressure on wages because of everything that's transpired over the last couple of years, the cost of living going up. Yeah, I don't like it either, but I don't think we have an alternative.
Any other, we'll go down the row here. We'll start with Councillor Derbyshire, Councillor Palmer, Councillor. Yep.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna ask for some clarity along here, just because this is not my wheelhouse of having multiple employees. So we approved wage increase over the next 4 years of a certain percent, right? We also do a cost of living increase all the way along too. Plus now we want to move them up into this new band and still continue on with, what do we give, 4.5% increase, so like every year for the next.
You do that, because that's a fair question, Councillor, Director Payne, can you just clarify, because I know we gave a cost of living and not interrupt, Councillor, but it's a fair question.
No, for sure. Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Derbyshire and Council. So, I'm going to back up a little bit. So, every year through budget process, we'll bring forward a report for cost of living that's equal to what the unionized group is getting. Okay, so we show a costing of that for budget. So that comes, it'll echo the collective agreement. So this past year was 3.75%. So non-union staff got 3.75% this year to the grid. Okay, that continues every year. I don't want to say it's automatically approved. Yes, it's in collective agreement. There's a long-standing union, non-union gets same or better than union, but we still bring forward that report showing council what that costing is every year anyways. We just, right now, we can predict the next 4 years. We know what the next 4 rate increases are. So that's just cost of living. So that's only one increase. Then we have, when you're on a grid, annually, you go up every January, 1 step on the grid. Okay. So technically there could be 2 increases if you move a step and you get cost of living. If you're at job rate, you would just get cost of living, you're not moving a step. So it's all relevant to where you sit on the grid.
Sorry to interrupt you, Jim.
Well, in that question, so when we talk about moving up the grid, say, I'm just gonna pick someone in step 1, number 3, making $50-something thousand, $50,177. So at the end of the year, they would get bumped up to the next step. So they'd go to 52 plus get a cost of living increase. So in that year then, they would go to 52 plus they would get 3.5% in cost of living. Am I hearing this right?
The percentages are off, they vary over the 4 years, but yeah, so.
Let's call 3%
so
increase.
Every January, so we bring a report to council through budget. You'll see the monetary, so the COLA, you'll see that cost. And then through operations, we budget the next step. So if somebody's sitting at step 1, we budget step 2. If somebody's at step 4, we budget step 5.
And you move up a step every year?
Yes.
Till you hit
job rate.
So at 6 is where you're done.
Correct.
And then it's just your cost of living would always be on top of that.
Each step movement is 4%. So the grid is built off 4%. So 4% between each step on the grid. Plus your COLA.
So are we losing people at the end of the max? So at 6 years and our max isn't high enough and they're gone? Or are we losing people somewhere in the step 2 to 4 range because somebody else's 2 to 4 range is better?
Through your worship, both. I'll speak to the attraction piece. We can attract, and I'll use the CBO position. We have made offers. We've made offers of our job rate, our top rate, and we're still $15,000 less than they're currently making in other municipalities, and that's a fact. Through my exit interviews I do for staff that are leaving over the last 3 years, probably 90% of them are higher wages in other municipalities. Not all, but probably 90% of them.
So just one more
Councillor,
follow-up.
one more follow-up.
So in leaving, we know they're leaving to other municipalities, not to the private sector, which we might not be able to compete with in general, right? That would be my statement. I understand if they're going municipality to municipality, that's different. We can compare that way, but if they go private, you can't just throw money at.
We have lost some in private, not, most stay in the municipal sector because of the pension, owner's pension transferable. But there have been a few that have gone to private.
Okay. Councilor, we'll go with Councilor Pelkman. I missed him, then we'll.
No, she can go first.
Okay.
Sure. My question is fairly simple. Would it be possible to keep the steps as they are now and then add the new max on top? Like, would that help solve the attraction portion, knowing that their eventual rate will be
Not sure if I should say that again?
well, so right now there's 5 steps, correct?
6.
6. So you add a step 7 and leave the current 6 where they are.
That'd be good if you're offering everybody job rate. We have a staff throughout the different bands. You may lose people that are at, say, 3. Currently, if they know they can go elsewhere for a higher earning, they may lose from a retention piece. Adding 1 step, so a 7-step grid, poses some pitfalls, and some of the feedback and grid structures, and Pesh might be able to explain it better than I can. The more steps you have, the longer it takes you to get the job rate, where I can get rate the job rate at another municipality within a couple of years, or maybe start a job rate. So
just to follow up that, but you would have the ability to offer them a position anywhere within the step grid based on their experience, correct?
That's how we offer today. We offer out based on the experience to bring it into the role. We typically don't offer job rate unless 2 factors. We're underpaying our market, and we have to offer job rate, which it's explained to the CBO. We offer job rate, we're still $15,000 less, so we had to offer job rate. I would have insulted them if I came in at step 2 or 3. And the other one is this internal equity as well, right? We want to make sure we balance that out. We're bringing people in right off the crack at job rate. We're losing internal equity for senior people that may have been in the municipality for 10 years. I just got a job rate a couple years ago versus somebody starting right at day 1.
Councilor Pamela.
We don't currently have a motion on the floor, do we?
Nope.
I would like to put a motion on the floor that we proceed with option 1 and ask staff to come back with a plan on how we would fund option 1 meeting, and that we pause compensation for council until the budget discussions.
Okay. Is someone to second your Councilor Canis? Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Wilsey.
As council, we haven't really, with the staff part, I'm good, but as far as the council part, we haven't really discussed any of that yet. There's a couple different options on the report there. I think council should at least have a chance to discuss that before I make a motion to decide it. I've got a couple things I'd like to bring up on at least the council portion that are maybe ways to attract without actually increasing the budget or the cost of the municipality. And I haven't had a chance to bring those up yet. So I'm in favor of everything that Councilor Behrman said except for the council portion. Unless we want to have discussion on that first.
Okay, there was a second motion. Is there any more comments or amendment? Okay, go ahead.
Councillor Wilsey, is there a way that we could separate that, like your motion? Would you be okay with that?
I'd be, yeah, I'll take the amendment to just motion to have staff come back with the funding options for option 1 for non-union wage, non-union wage options.
Okay, are you okay with that? May I ask a question of your motion? Are you approving option 1 or asking it approved contingent upon funding options coming back? Just for my own clarity, so I know what I'm voting on.
I believe I said that we move forward with option 1,
Okay.
but I guess it would be dependent on finding out how we're gonna fund it. Contingent on funding.
Okay.
Frank,
Okay.
is that what you?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, there is a second motion in front of you. All in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Councillor Wilsey, did you want to open the floor to Councillor Wages?
Yeah, so reading through this, and I think every time the council wage options come up, I think I've asked if we could defer the wages. I don't think the small wage increase for council, I don't think would make a big difference. At least for myself in doing the job, like whether it's a couple $1,000s a year, most of that will be lost to tax, and it's not a significant increase. But one thing that keeps coming up, and it's something that the public already thinks we get, is the OMERS pension and the benefits. One thing I would like to bring and see if council would, because I already know the mayor can opt into some of those, and I'm not sure about the OMERS part, but I know I'm fairly confident he gets the benefits. What I would like to offer to council is the option to opt in at our own cost to the programs, and if we want to separate that, to be able to opt into the benefits or the pension, because I know even the employees that we hire for the summer program, we had that discussion at a meeting. So all the summer students that we hire who work the fairs, they all get the option to go into OMERS and benefits when they're even the part-time summer students who's here for 2 months. Maybe not benefits, but I know they have to pay into the OMERS. So I'm just thinking we should maybe get that same option, and that would actually be something that would be another benefit to those of us who haven't retired from a job that's got a pension, where we could potentially fund that without actually an increase in it, and we give the council members the option to opt in. So no budget impact, but allows councillors to have some of the benefit that those of us in private sector or places that don't have pensions might get some of the benefit of the other private people. So just leave that on the floor to see what people think before we make any motions.
Okay, I was going to ask Director Payne for clarity on that, because go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Worships. I'm going to unfold a little bit. So we don't offer benefits, health and dental benefits to our part-timers or students. We don't offer that. Also, OMERS changed a couple years ago. Any position can be offered OMERS. It used to be you had to have a certain amount of hours, but they've taken that away. So our summer students do get offered OMERS. Most of them don't take it, but some of them do take it. I'm going to build on the council now. So OMERS, council can give that direction. It's a little bit complicated once council, so that if this council chose to go to OMERS, you could decide yes or no individually. But after this sitting of council, on a go-forward basis, all new councillors coming in would be mandatory to join OMERS. You would have a choice today if you were to make that motion, but new council sitting in for the next council would not have a choice. It'd be, unless it's changed by council as a whole, by law. Is that correct? I think I said that correctly.
And the other option when it comes to OMERS is you don't have the ability to pay 100%?
No, it's
the 50-50.
50-50, yeah.
So the municipality would have to pay the other half.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Pelkman.
I was just gonna say, I don't think we should make any motions on that tonight until the regulations are checked in, because I seem to remember it was either everyone in or everyone out. I don't remember.
That is accurate. That's changed. So Will and I talked to OMERS last fall about that. So you can opt in. Just once council makes it would be a bylaw. Once you make that motion, if it gets approved, you can decide individually, but on a go-forward basis. So new council coming in or replacement council, it's not a yes or no. It's mandatory until the bylaw changes.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
I mean, I don't want to vote myself in a pay raise, but I'm gonna make a motion just because I want council. And the only way to do that is to make a motion, but one sec, I gotta get over to the right document, Your Worship. Do we have to leave?
declared an emergency.
So I'm gonna throw this out here. I don't wanna vote myself a wage increase. I'll make that statement, but that we adopt, council approve the council wage option 1 effective the 1st of January 2027. That's not our administration. That's the next administration.
For council.
That would be the next administration for council after the next election. Because I think it's important that we at least address it. Otherwise, you may not get good people applying, and nobody ever wants to deal with it. And for us, we're making the decision now.
I'll second that. Okay, were you asking a question there,
Yeah.
Councillor Hippel?
Yeah. Okay, well, so, through yourself. Well, I get that. It makes sense. And I have spoken to so many younger people that maybe are not retired, don't have pensions. I mean, they're starting out very knowledgeable and would be incredible counselors within our municipality. They also know that we have lots of meetings, that they're gone quite a bit because they're on various committees, boards, what have you. And again, I say they're not retired. They're still working. They've got families. I mean, it's great that we have people of all age groups and all career types. But at the end of the day, there are some people that actually, it would be beneficial for them to actually have a little bit extra, regardless if, you know, for some people, it would just go to their taxes. For other people, it wouldn't. So there's a lot of people that really don't want to put, they want to come, they want to be a part of, or they want to put their name out and participate and hopefully become a council member within our municipality. But at the end of the day, it's not feasible, it's not affordable. So what are we saying that, like, I mean, I know you don't want to give yourself a raise, but maybe we just start, I don't know, I don't think we should make decisions for the next council. It doesn't seem sensible to me. But at the same time, I mean, if you're gonna start somewhere, then you start now. Because I don't know if you wanna speak for everyone. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me, but that's just my thought.
Councillor Wilsey, then we'll bring it to a vote.
To a lot of the same vein of what Councillor Hippel said, a lot of the people who are younger and maybe the incentive that they need is maybe they do need benefits. Maybe they have benefits that would really help them and it would reduce the load at home if they've got families. So that's kind of where I was coming at with the pension and the benefits. There's lots of different people who don't have benefits that it might benefit. And maybe give that extra incentive that they need to be involved in the process and represent and serve the way that we're doing. So with that being said, the council wage option, if we're going to vote on that one, could I ask if the deputy mayor would consider adding to the report that we're going to get back in the non-union wage, what the cost would be to add benefits and owner's pension to council separately so that we can choose if we want to include that.
Yeah. We have a second motion.
Yeah,
So.
my motion, I'll just let my motion stand as it is. And then if somebody wants to move that motion afterwards, it's different again.
Okay, Councillor Polk, then I want to bring this to a vote.
I guess the comment that I would make is that if people are using benefits and pension to decide whether or not they're going to run for council, there's a 4-year job review, and you may not be in it for the long haul, which is typically what a pension plan is for. The cost to the municipality for us to opt into the pension plan, if my memory is correct, is massive. It's a huge cost. I think what the deputy mayor is suggesting is fair, to consider compensation for the next group, but not for us. is reasonable. But I would oppose definitely adding the cost to the taxpayers. And I've been in this for a long time. It would have been very beneficial for me to have it from the start. And I'm saying that's not why you're here. It's not why you're here. And if that's your deciding factor, then you weren't right for the job in the first place. I think the salary compensation is fair. I think the COLA increases are fine. But I just did the math quick. If somebody was making $18 an hour at a full-time position at 35 hours a week, the annual salary is $32,000.
Okay. Said, if you have a second motion in front of you, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any? That motion carries.
Didn't even vote.
Councillor Wilsey, did you want to bring another motion?
Yeah, I'll just, the motion that I talked before, just to at least have the numbers, for what they would did, I would ask that, the staff would include in the report that comes forward what the cost would be for council to enroll in OMER's and/or benefits as applicable. Just to get the costing and bring that back when we're looking at the non-union wage increase as an item on the report.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Derbyshire, any debate on that motion? Councillor Derbyshire.
I do just want to say, like, I understand we all want to say, but to be downright honest with you, this is $31,000 total. Like, we make it sound like, oh, we're gonna save you $2,000 or $3,000 here, this, that. I'll be downright honest with you. If I had to pay a phone bill, it'd be through the roof. Like, my phone rings. At least I'm 4 to 5 hours on the phone every day with constituents. Now, thank God I have Bluetooth in the tractors, and I just leave it running. And we just talk mostly that way. To say that this here is a part-time gig for someone who, and I guess if I didn't answer my phone, people just wouldn't get answered to, but after that I do go out, I do visit people, I do go for walks. I'm not saying I want $55,000, but I do agree that when I tell people that we make $22,000, people are like, you wouldn't catch me dead signing up for that. There's no way I would take that for that kind of money. That's what I get told. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying I need $55,000. I did it because I love the community. That's what I signed up for. But I mean, if there is other benefits to it, like Greg's referring to, where maybe somebody without dental, self-employed, this, that, goes, hey, you know what, if I can pay into dental, that might be worth it now that I'm already in here. That's all it is. It's not, it shouldn't, so I can get dental. But if I have the option to buy into that, I mean, I would do it. I don't have it. So if it was available to me because I have decided to take this position, that would be a nice option. That's all this is. I mean, we just have a discussion about it, not in the way that, I'm taking money from the taxpayer and we need to save this. It's when we talk about fair compensation for the staff, it's the same for us. It's fair compensation, even though it's our wage and we have to talk about it. It's kind of uncomfortable, but we still have to have this discussion, not just say, we don't need it, we don't need it. Like, we may not need it. Somebody else coming in might say, I'm not doing this much work and only do half the work. Like, that's all it is. But on Greg's point, I think we should at least see what the cost of possibly doing that option is. It never hurts to see it. We're already getting a report done on the other things, so.
I'm going to be just voting in favor of Councillor Wilsey's motion only because I was shocked when I came here to find out that the mayor got benefits, and I've never understood why it's just the mayor. I mean, we're all equal around here. I've said that many times. So I've never understood why councillors don't get it. So with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed, if any? Can you leave your hands up if you're opposed? I just need to get the count. So that's 3. Okay. So the motion carries. Thank you for the report. Thank you very much. And just because I don't want to get caught in a storm, the county council highlights, Deputy Mayor.
Nothing extra other than the report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with Councillor Hippel. Announcements and inquiries, 5 members.
Okay, thank you. I'll be as fast as I can. I want to thank Director Ortiz. 2 council meetings ago, I mentioned to him that there was an issue with Saxton Road with the second coat that they put on the road, and it was not done well. It was very, and honestly, bumpy, lumpy. People thought that their tires were having issues, that their cars were having issues. Anyways, wow, do you ever get on that fast? And I'm very impressed. So I would like to say thank you to that, and for being very receptive to all of the emails and phone calls I was getting. We had a really cool Mount Burgess Community Fest, and it was very well attended, and it was very successful. Lots of great weather and lots of people out. So I wanted to thank everyone that's involved in all of that, and for everyone out and about. But I also, my biggest thing at this time of year is graduation. So we've got a large amount of elementary schools in our system, in our municipality. Whether it's French immersion or it's Catholic, Christian, or public, they're all graduating. We have grade 8 graduates coming up, and I just want to wish every single one of them the best future, all the best in their future endeavors when they hit high school. These children are our future. And as they graduate out of grade 8 and hit high school, and all of the different things that they take academically, and all the different, I don't know, clubs and all the things that they do. These children are turning into teenagers, these teenagers are turning into young men and women, and these will be the ones that are sitting in our seats. So when we're doing the forecasting 30 years down the road, however long it is, these are the ones that are going to be sitting here, and the things that we're doing are advantageous for them. So I'm very, very proud of all of them, and I wish them all the best.
Councillor Canis.
Nothing.
Councillor Woolsey.
I just wanted to carry on a little bit from Councillor Hippel's comments and just expand that to a lot of the service groups and that our youth are involved in. I know not only are we providing awards and some different things at the different graduations, but I'm actually going and presenting some to the Girl Guides later this week as well for some who have gone above and beyond, served their community. There are some awards that these girls have gone through, and I think I'm presenting 6 of them tomorrow night to a group in Strathroy. And beyond that, they have done, got all of their merit badges. They've done a community serving project. I know the Scouts in Mount Bridges are doing one where we're doing a new map for the Lions Trails. So we can do a new satellite map and print that out and work with a lot of things just for making the community better. And it's all things that the youth of our community are doing and taking on themselves. I'm really impressed with all the youth and the things that they're doing to make the community better. And I think we've got a lot of hope coming up for things, just for the examples, these same age range of these grade 8s and that age range as they're graduating.
Councillor Falkman.
Yes, thank you. I have 2 items. One, I would request that staff, some of us received an email about Kemp Street and the traffic on Kemp, which astounds me because it's a crescent that goes nowhere. But apparently people are speeding on it, and it's a very narrow street. So if that could be going to the traffic committee to look at possible measures that could be taken. I don't think we require a motion for them to.
Already passed it on, no.
Okay, perfect. And the other, maybe about a week and a half prior to the last meeting, John Mackey passed away. John served a good amount of time on the Police Services Board, serving at least 2 stints as chair. Him and I altered for a while. And, as a kid, when he was the principal of Southdale School, it was, John Mackey was a person to be feared. He was a tall man with a deep booming voice. But as I got to know him on the Police Services Board, he was a man that valued friendship having people over for dinner that he knew their spouses had died on a regular basis, a deep love of history for the community, and turned out to be a very, very passionate person for our police service, and just wanted to note that he put a lot of effort into that, and I very much appreciated the time I served with him. So.
Councillor Herbishire.
Thank you. I was going to say, but I do want to clarify. I do not mind the phone calls from people. I actually do encourage them. I don't want to make it sound like I was like, don't call me. No, I do. I appreciate my role. I like it. I enjoy serving you, and I enjoy your phone calls, as I'm sure we all do. I just wanted to clarify that so it didn't sound like I was more like, don't phone me, but no, phone anytime. Thank you.
Councillor Pammer.
Yeah, this past week, I had the honor of joining the Order of the Eastern Star District 5 Strathroy, Chapter 128, for their 100th anniversary. And I was able to bring greetings on behalf of council and the community and thank them for their service. It was a very interesting lunch. If you're into history, they're worth talking to. They have the actual minute book from day one in somebody's handwriting. And every minute ever written thereafter, before whiteout or anything. So really pristine minute taking that happened. I was quite impressed, Jen, to be very. Anyway, I just want to congratulate them on their significant 100th anniversary in Strathroy.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Steve, that was a good walk down memory lane with Mr. Mackey. He was an incredible gentleman, and I really enjoyed working with him through the Police Association when he was chair of the board. On that matter, there's one, I generally don't talk about policing a whole lot, but in this case I want to. Some time ago, I had a friend of mine that approached me and having some difficulties with a situation they had involving their child at one of the schools in Strathroy. So I had a lot of faith in the officers I used to work with. So I said, you go talk to the police station and they're going to help you out. And so here, after many months of hard work, I just want to let you know some of the work that your officers are doing in this community. And I'm reading from a little bit from a letter that was sent to me. He wanted to let me know how this all worked out. And he said, in moments where care, patience, and understanding were most needed, Constable Stubb, and I will say I've never worked with Constable Stubb. I've probably met him, but I've never worked with this young officer. Constable Stubb went above and beyond the call of duty, not only protective and profoundly empowering. This young lady was met not just with the presence of an officer, but with the heart of someone who genuinely cared. It's no exaggeration to say that the work of Constable Stubb changed the course of this young lady's experience in a tremendously positive way. Talks about his balance of professionalism with deep empathy and rare and deeply valued. His actions, he reminded us all of the powerful role that law enforcement can play in supporting individuals throughout their most vulnerable moments. As a result of all of this, young lady graduated recently and is moving on in her life. I just want to let you know how proud we should all be about the professionalism of Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service and the value that they bring to our community. Of course, I was one of them. Very, very grateful to have had that role also. But very, very touching letter. But Constable Stubb, hopefully one of your fellow officers are listening and let you know what we've said about you this evening, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Mick. May I ask you if you deem fit, forward that to the Police Service Board? Again, if you, unless it's got there some other way, Deputy Mayor?
I think it went to the chief, but I'll kick it up to you.
No, thank you. As announcements, as I alluded to at the start, I have been working on the manner in which I need to dispose of some of all strong mayor powers. I've been working with the clerk. I had conversations with Minister Flack's office. So on July 7th, there will be a number of not motions, but letters coming where I delegate all the authorities back, happen individually, and that also will include the budget. So I just want to make council aware of that unfortunately, in order to get rid of your strong mayor powers, you have to use your strong mayor powers. So July 7th. Motion that council move into closed session at 9:37 PM to discuss the following. One item in accordance with council's procedure bylaw to approve in-camera meeting minutes of June 2nd, and one item pursuant to section 239 2F of the Municipal Act 2001 regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, servicing agreement. Motion to go into closed. Councillor Kenneth, second by Councillor Pelkman. Also going to note we will take a 10-minute recess. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that motion carries. Back here at 9:46. motion to close session adjourn at 9:50 PM and open session resume. Councillor Pammer, second by Councillor Hitball. All in favor? Carried. Pardon? On a roll here.
Can I reclaim my inquiries time?
You may. Can I go through this first?
Yeah, sure,
We're good.
sure.
We're at the very end, okay? Council met in closed session to consider matters it is permitted to do so under the Municipal Act and is listed on tonight's council agenda. The following items were considered during the closed session. One item in accordance with council's procedure bylaw to approve in-camera meeting minutes of May 20th, 2025. The meeting minutes were approved. One item pursuant to section 239(2)(f) of the Municipal Act regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, servicing agreement. Direction was given to staff. Motion of the direction given in closed session be approved. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Derbyshire. All in favor? That one carries. I'll get you at the very end, okay? Consideration of bylaws. There are 4 bylaws in front of you this evening. Motion that all 4 bylaws receive first, second, third, and final reading. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Pammer. All in favor? That motion carries. Before we adjourn, I'm going to yield the floor to Councillor Kennis.
Yeah, I wanted to reclaim my inquiry time. I think you all forgot to, because it happened so short a time ago, the Old Town Festival was held this past week, and I think was very successful by the number of people that I saw during my visits downtown, and I think we all acknowledge the amount of work that's done by a small committee and a few volunteers, and how much it brings to our community. And so I think we thank all of those volunteers for their continued work in making it all successful.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Motion that we adjourn at 9:53 PM. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Kennis. Sorry, Councillor Pelkman. It's late at night. All in favor? That motion carries.
I'm honored.